Chapter 1072. The 5 origin tools hovered in the sky. Rays of light swirled as the god emperors were suppressed by them. Outside, Long Chen, on the other hand, held his sword and enjoyed the slaughter to his heart's content. The thousands of god kings from the 5 blessed lands were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Retreat. Use the power of the origin tools to retreat. The elder from the great void blessed lands was the first to speak. The 10 god emperors were suppressed, but Long Chen was immune to the origin tools. Without the support of the origin tools, everyone was fearful of Long Chen. He was the successor of the realm master. The people from the great void blessed lands were the first to retreat. The origin tools above their heads showered the sky with brilliant light. Dao laws condensed into weapons and bombarded Long Chen. At the same time, the other 4 blessed lands also directed their origin tools to suppress Long Chen. Pillars of light were guided by countless Dao laws and fell on Long Chen. Long Chen, who was holding a long sword, was immediately stopped. Under everyone's gaze, everyone was overwhelmed with shock. Long Chen waved the sword in his hand. Although he was suppressed for a moment, his appearance was very different from the other 10 god emperors who were trapped. 9 dragon shadows rose behind him as the sword in his hand roared angrily. Long Chen injected his divine power into the sword and quickly cut through the power of the 5 origin tools. This person's sword is also an origin tool, and it emits a powerful suppressive power. He won't be suppressed for long. Retreat, retreat quickly. If it were an ordinary god emperor, it would be fine. However, this person's battle strength far surpasses his peers. Even if we attack with our full strength, we won't be able to win. The forces from the 5 blessed lands used their secret techniques and moved tens of thousands of kilometers away. Boom, crack, crack. After everyone fled, the power of the 5 origin tools gradually disappeared. The god emperors regained their ability to move. Their bodies were covered in terrifying wounds, and their faces were filled with fear. One of them had died a violent death, and his soul had been crushed. The remaining 9 god emperors were furious when they saw this. They had been together day and night on the mountain peak for 10 years. If Long Chen was like a master, then they were like brothers. 5 origin tools in addition to the power of the 5 blessed lands' late-stage divine king realm cultivators had displayed a strength that far exceeded their expectations. This was enough to show how terrifying the forces of blessed lands were. If it weren't for the fact that Long Chen wasn't suppressed by the origin tool, everything would have been over. Kill! 9 people escaped. Long Chen only said one word. As soon as he said this word, the beast god's grotto and the other grotto heavens felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Their backs were instantly drenched in cold sweat. The leaders of the various clans did not move, but many venerable sovereigns and god kings knelt on the ground, begging Long Chen to spare their lives. Including Long Chen, there were still 10 god emperors. Without the help of the blessed lands, it was impossible for the grotto heaven forces to win. The 10 god emperors led by Zhuge didn't care about the horse roars. Streaks of divine light rained down from the sky like a rain of arrows, crazily slaughtering the heavenly abodes of the various races. This battle was a battle of life and death to begin with. This battle was destined to cause earth-shattering changes to the forces of the grotto heavens. Wen Ji and the god kings of the grotto heavens were trembling all over. At this moment, the various grotto heavens had already exhausted their resources. Facing the god emperors, although they had the advantage in numbers, they could only flee in panic. Long Chen ignored the mountains of corpses and seas of blood in front of him and soared into the sky. His gaze seemed to transcend space. 9 dragon shadows appeared behind him and prostrated themselves on the long sword. Countless rays of divine light condensed and did not dissipate. You all are leaving too quickly. Long Chen's voice rumbled like spring thunder, rolling out in waves. As soon as he finished speaking, with a slash of his sword, a cold light swept across 10,000 miles. Dragon shadows accompanied the sword light as it tore through the sky, like stars falling from the heavens. Within the grotto heaven forces, countless people in countless cities raised their heads to watch. The vast power made countless people prostrate themselves on the ground. Pu. Under countless gazes, where the sword light disappeared, fresh blood poured down like rain. 9 dragon shadows seemed to churn and intertwine in the clouds, roaring continuously. One after another, God King experts fell from the sky. Their bodies were reduced to dust by the mighty sword chi. 9 dragons soared into the sky, a cold sword light spanning 1,000,000 miles. The forces of the 5 blessed lands frantically fled from the sword light behind them. The destruction of 2 origin tools gave them a chance to escape. Even so, more than 1,000 god kings died unnatural deaths. In this battle, the 5 blessed lands fled in defeat. The might of the god emperors transcended time and space, once again appearing within the grotto heaven's sphere of influence. The forces of the blessed lands were defeated. When Longchen turned around, the 9 god emperors behind him led more than 1,000 god kings and charged into the various grotto heavens. One after another, their bodies were crushed. One after another, their souls were crushed into powder. 10 years of enduring, today was the day they returned. Apart from the 10 Great Grotto Heavens Alliance, all the venerable sovereigns and above from the 22 Grotto Heavens forces died here. Longchen stood in the sky. He personally witnessed the slaughter that had lasted for 10 days and amidst the screams of the living souls. The mountains had changed, and the rivers had stopped flowing. Under the sky, it was a bloody massacre. The 9 god emperors flew across the sky, each of them filled with violent killing intent. When they arrived in front of Longchen, each of them knelt on one knee, not saying a word. Longchen looked at them and stood in the sky. His voice rumbled once again, the undying Tao law has disappeared, but the order within the grotto heaven's sphere of influence remains. Those who slaughter living beings below the sovereign emperor realm and violate the undying Tao law will be personally executed by me. At this moment, his words were the Tao law. Who would dare to defy him within the grotto heaven's sphere of influence? His words were also for the 10 great grotto heavens to hear. The cause and effect of this massacre had been severed. If anyone ignored the undying Tao law and wantonly sought revenge, it would be no different from what the beast god grotto heavens and the others had done. Along the way, Longchen's mentality gradually underwent an earth-shattering change. He had also personally witnessed the undying Tao law created by the ancient saint ruler and what it meant in the ancient saint divine world. Search the grotto heaven's sphere of influence and find the remains of all sovereign emperors. On the other side, the people from the 5 great blessed lands flew all the way to the blessed lands. The solemn vow that they had made when they came had long disappeared, leaving behind only fear and anger. The grotto heaven's sphere of influence has been broken. There's no need for the grotto heaven's sphere of influence to exist anymore. Damn it. When we return this time, I'm afraid the other blessed land's sphere of influence will definitely find out about this. The matter of the Realm Lord's successor will only attract more people to fight over it. This person has obtained the power of life and death in the grotto heaven's sphere of influence. He will definitely find all the sovereign emperor's bodies hidden in the grotto heavens. Crossing the grotto heaven's sphere of influence. The 5 great grotto heavens sphere of influence headed straight for the blessed land's sphere of influence. Within the blessed land's sphere of influence, a person who looked like an illusory soul stood in the sky above the 9 heavens. His gaze seemed to cross space and stare into the distance. Someone's using a sword. What a powerful sword intent. Chapter 1073. Within the grotto heavens. There were originally 32 grotto heavens, but now there were only 10 grotto heavens left. The number of grotto heavens was even less than the number of blessed lands. Longchen stood in the central area of the Zhuge grotto heaven. It was still a palace. However, it was no longer where the Zhuge grotto heaven was, but the beast god grotto heaven. All the emperors within the beast god grotto heaven's territory were killed. From then on, the beast god grotto heaven was a thing of the past. After the turbulent battle, the entire grotto heaven only took half a month to restore order. This was all thanks to Longchen's order that day. More than 20 grotto heavens above emperors were slaughtered, which shocked almost all the cities of the Grotto Heavens. Even though there were many remnants, they completely drew a line with the Grotto Heavens and did not dare to resist at all. On the other hand, Longchen ordered the 9 great god emperors to pass down the order. The people of the various races still had to act according to the undying Tao law. No one was allowed to kill living beings below emperors. The bloodshed like when the beast god Grotto Heaven was ruled did not happen again. Moreover, in that battle, the various forces had already slaughtered too many people. No matter how much resentment there was, it had already disappeared. Everyone is here. Come in. Longchen stood on a bright seat in the middle of the palace. This seat was carved with extremely high-grade source stones. The beast heads were vivid and lifelike. This was originally where Wen Qi sat in the beast god Grotto Heaven. Longchen's voice fell. The palace door gradually opened. The 9 emperor gods led by Zhuge Ziyun walked in one by one. Behind them were the clan leaders. Of course, these clan leaders actually did not have any real power. After all, the people who carried the mandate of heaven had already stepped into the emperor god realm. The 9 emperor gods and the people from the 10 forces all stood on both sides. No one sat down. Longchen waved his hand. Emperor god Jiuming sat on the green gold tiger beast seat on both sides. The godly king experts of the various clans remained standing. Longchen's gaze swept across everyone. His gaze gradually fell on the Wind Moon Grotto Heaven's clan leader. This person's eyes were lifeless, and his mood was extremely low. The person who bore the mandate of heaven had just become a god emperor, but he had been killed by the origin tools of the 5 blessed lands. The other 9 god emperors, on the other hand, were safe and sound. No matter who it was, they would not have a good time. Leader of the Wind Moon Grotto, please accept this, Longchen said as he delivered the soul brands to the leader of the Wind Moon Grotto. This divine soul brand did not belong to the Emperor Lord. It was something that Longchen had taught the Wind Moon Paradise's chosen one for 10 years. In reality, this was also the teaching method of the Realm Lord for 10 years. With this item, as long as the Wind Moon Paradise could find someone with sufficient aptitude, a god emperor would be born one day. From today onwards, the Wind Moon Wonderland will be on equal footing with the other wonderlands. We will share the power of the wonderland. Longchen said. All the god emperors nodded. For more than 10 years, the forces of the 10 Grotto Heavens gathered in the Zhuge Grotto Heaven. They had been together for days and nights and had already developed a tacit understanding. In that battle, only the god emperor of the Wind Moon Grotto had fallen. They sighed in their hearts. Master, the Emperor Lord's body parts that you mentioned have been found. This should be all the Emperor Lord's body parts in the Grotto Heavens, Zhuge Ziyun said as he threw a storage ring to Longchen. Longchen took the storage ring and checked it. His eyes grew serious. All the god emperors of the Grotto Heavens saw this and let out a long sigh of relief. Although they were curious about the Emperor Lord's body parts, they did not covet them because they could not merge with the Emperor Lord's body parts. Moreover, right now, Longchen was their only hope. If it was not for Longchen's existence, after provoking the forces of the blessed lands, all the clans would have taken the opportunity to withdraw from the Grotto Heavens. With the god kings and emperor gods of the Grotto Heavens, where could they not establish themselves outside the central state? Longchen naturally knew the intentions of the people of the Grotto Heavens. Ever since Zhuge Grotto nurtured 10 emperor gods in 10 years, the people of the Grotto Heavens had already worshipped him like a god. Longchen looked at the storage ring in his hand and suddenly said, "Do you still plan to follow me? You should know that we are going to face the forces of the 16 blessed lands. In fact, after the Grotto Heavens are reconstructed and sealed, I should be able to leave the Grotto Heavens and head to the Blessed Lands forces. We should be able to prevent the Blessed Lands from attacking the Grotto Heavens." In fact, Longchen had the same intention. Although the Emperor Lord's body parts were in his hands, he was only one person. No matter how high his cultivation level was, he would not be able to bring so many people and compete with the forces of the Blessed Lands. The next time the forces of the Blessed Lands came, it would not be like this time with only 5 origin tools and thousands of God Kings. Everyone fell silent. Even the 9 God Emperors were the same. Longchen turned around and prepared to walk into the inner hall. He signaled for everyone to leave. However, Yao Yiji stood up at this moment. She suddenly knelt on one knee in the hall and said, "The Ghost Python Grotto is willing to give up the name of a grotto and follow Master from now on." Seeing this, the various grotto heavens looked at each other. Yao Yiji spoke again, "The forces of the grotto heavens have been here for nearly 20,000 years. Since you are willing to leave this place, instead of retreating and leaving the central continent, why not take a step forward?" Longchen stopped in his tracks. He looked deeply at Yao Yiji. This woman was ambitious and had her own ideas. She had almost killed him back then. If it were not for her relationship with Zhuge Ziyun that made him feel sorry for her, even 10 deaths would not be enough. But now. However, Longchen was a little concerned about his words. One step further. That was to establish a Blessed Land Force. 9 God Emperors and 9 Grotto Heavens to form a new Blessed Land Force. Us becoming a Blessed Land Force will not solve the problem in front of us. We will still be the target of public criticism. Facing the forces of the Blessed Lands, we will not have any chance to breathe. Everyone voiced the doubts in their hearts. Including Longchen, although the battle strength of the 10 God Emperors gave them the capital to establish a Blessed Land, it was nothing compared to the forces of the other Blessed Lands. Continue. Longchen signaled for Yao Yiji to continue. Since she had brought up this matter, she should have many ideas. After all, establishing a Blessed Land Force was not as simple as just saying. One of them. They had to abandon the Grotto Heavens and set foot on the land of the Blessed Lands. A Blessed Land Force was not just a name. They occupied the most fertile land in the central continent. Heaven's Fate Palace, we need the support of Heaven's Fate Palace. Yao Yiji looked at Longchen. Longchen frowned slightly. Chapter 1074. Heaven's Fate Palace. A group of people who pried into the undying Tao law. Outside the transcendent and blessed lands. It was once prophesied that the current disciple of the ancient saint ruler could reform the ancient saint divine world. Yao Yiji's suggestion was undoubtedly for Longchen to bring them to the blessed lands and establish contact with Heaven's Fate Palace. Longchen did not agree to it, but he did not reject it either. This matter was not as simple as it seemed. The meeting ended. Longchen returned to the secret chamber and took out the Imperial Lord's remains. There was a dazzling array of Imperial Lord's remains in various sizes. Longchen took a deep breath and asked the Imperial Lord's remnant soul in a deep voice, "I've just stepped into the Emperor God realm. Can I step into the Divine King realm with the origins in these remains?" Longchen asked. "You'll know when you try," the Imperial Lord's remnant soul said with a hint of a smile. Longchen heard the Imperial Lord's mocking tone. He immediately activated the chaotic Golden Codex and began to integrate the Imperial Lord's remains. Tao inscriptions began to appear. Dazzling threads intertwined around Longchen and fell into the pieces of flesh. Rumble. There was a loud rumble as the threads intertwined. Longchen's limbs, bones, and meridians merged with the flesh and blood. Endless violent energy began to pour into him. Longchen's expression changed drastically as his body glowed brightly. "How can I absorb the Imperial Lord's origins so quickly? There are so many Imperial Lord's remains, but I don't feel my realm loosening." In the blink of an eye, 1/10 of the Imperial Lord's remains had disappeared. Longchen was shocked. In the past, even if he had obtained the Imperial Lord's remains, it would take him at least 10 days to integrate even a fist-sized blood clot. But now, it was like a giant whale sucking in water. Emperor gods can already merge with the ancient saint divine world. This origins can only help you reach the 3rd stage of the Emperor God realm, the Imperial Lord's remnant soul said to Longchen. Longchen could not help but feel a little disappointed. According to his previous knowledge, The Imperial Lord's remains were enough for him to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. In just one day, Longchen managed to fuse with a large amount of Monarch Master's broken corpses. His cultivation had truly soared to the third level of the God Emperor stage. If outsiders were to hear Longchen's thoughts and the words of the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul, they would probably die of anger on the spot. Among the God Emperors, there were some who couldn't even take a step forward in 1,000 years. Third-level God Emperor. Although he'll be able to protect himself within the Blessed Lands, it'll be extremely difficult for him to continue seizing the source energy of the remnant body. Longchen muttered to himself as he began to ponder over Yao Yiji's suggestion. On the other side, a beam of sword light shot out from the Blessed Lands territory towards the Grotto Heaven's forces. This sword ray was so fast that it was almost impossible to see it with the naked eye. However, this strange speed came to an abrupt stop, falling straight down from tens of thousands of miles in the sky. Buzz! The sword light descended, blocking the path of the mighty army. This team had just entered the Blessed Land not long ago. There were a total of 5 teams, and they were the forces of the 5 Blessed Lands that had been defeated by the Heavenly Abode forces. At this moment, their expressions were extremely ugly. Originally, they had been defeated by Longchen and lost many God Kings, causing them to be depressed. Now that their path was blocked by an unknown sword, they were instantly enraged. Who dares to block the people of the Great Void Blessed Land? The white-haired old man with the black beard was the first to speak. The other forces of the 4 Blessed Lands also angrily rebuked. Just as he finished speaking, the undamaged origin tool rose into the sky once again. Shio! Just as the origin tool rose into the sky, a beam of sword light flashed past. The space above everyone's head was actually split into 2, and the origin tool was cut in half by the sword. This scene, it caused everyone to be stunned on the spot, as if they were facing a great enemy. At this moment, a voice came from the sword light that blocked everyone's path, saying, "You came from the Grotto Heaven forces, so who is Longchen?" Hiss. The sword made a sound. The God Kings of the 5 Blessed Lands immediately felt their hair stand on end, and all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. Within the Blessed Lands territory, there was one person who could transform into a sword. This person had only appeared in the Blessed Lands territory for an extremely short period of time, but he had an unimaginable reputation. He had challenged the sword cultivator experts of the various Grotto Heavens along the way and had never tasted defeat. Nearly half of the 16 Great Blessed Lands forces had thrown out olive branches to him, wanting to take him into their clans. No one knew what realm he was at. They only knew that his sword was too sharp. The leader of the Great Void Grotto Heaven's old man's ashen face immediately disappeared without a trace. He immediately revealed a mocking smile and said, "It's just a person who messed up the Grotto Heaven forces. He is the successor of the Realm Master. This is what he looks like." The old man looked at the sword blade that was less than an inch in front of his eyes. The words that he had originally planned to hide were immediately swallowed back. This long sword was really strange. He stared at Jianshi San, but he was unable to sense the slightest fluctuation of his cultivation base. It was as if this person was an ice-cold sword. "You guys were going to kill him, right? You even brought the origin tool." Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, under everyone's watchful eyes, the sword light had already swept through heaven and earth, turning into thousands of rays that escaped into the void. When it reappeared, it had already pierced through the bodies of thousands of divine kings. Blood rained down, and the divine souls began to melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. Jianshi San looked at the divine souls that were about to shatter, and once again broke through the void, leaving behind only a faint voice, "He is my master." After Jianshi San stepped into the Grotto Heaven forces, he once again transformed into an illusory body. The sword fingers on his right hand condensed and slashed towards the sky. The entire Grotto Heaven forces. The sword light in the sky was like a heavenly moat, spanning hundreds of thousands of miles. Such a scene immediately alarmed the various Grotto Heaven forces. One after another, divine emperors flew into the sky, passing through the Grotto Heaven Bridge and heading towards this sword light. In just a few hours, 9 divine emperors surrounded Jianshi San. They all revealed shocked expressions, because the person in front of them did not have a physical body, but also did not seem like a divine soul. They could not even sense the cultivation base of the person in front of them. They only felt waves of dense sword intent rushing towards them, and it was actually similar to their divine emperor's might. Sword soul. This was a sword soul. Everyone quickly discovered the strangeness of the soul in front of them. Why are you disturbing our Grotto Heaven forces? Zhuge Ziyun was the first to ask. Jianshi San's illusory soul flashed, and his pupils involuntarily shrank. He said, 9 divine emperors, within the Grotto Heaven forces, there are divine emperors. It's a pity that the swords in your hands are too weak. I'm here today to look for someone. When he sees this sword, he should know that I'm here. Zhuge Ziyun and the others exchanged glances, only feeling that this person's words were strange. They subconsciously asked, who are you looking for? A person called Long Chen. Rumble. Just as Jianshi San's voice fell, the 9 divine emperors might soared to the sky, and they were about to attack Jianshi San. Chapter 1075. The sword radiance soared into the sky. Zhuge Ziyun and the others immediately looked in that direction. That was the direction of the Beast God's Grotto Heaven, which was where the Zhuge Grotto Heaven was located. Everyone looked at each other. Naturally, they knew who had unleashed this terrifying sword technique, and they also understood the meaning behind it. Zhuge Ziyun took a deep look at Jianshi San and said, come with us, I'll take you to him. After that, the 9 of them turned into flowing lights and rushed toward the Zhuge Grotto Heaven. The 9 of them were extremely fast, as if they wanted to shake off Jianshi San. However, no matter how fast they were, Jianshi San turned into a sword radiance and followed closely behind them. Everyone was shocked. In terms of speed, Jianshi San was comparable to a god emperor. Yao Yiji's footsteps suddenly slowed down. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she looked back at the sword radiance Jianshi San turned into. She cried out involuntarily, sword spirit, you're the one who worships the sword like a demon. Jianshi San had no intention of answering her and continued to follow closely behind her. When everyone heard Yao Yiji's words, they immediately thought of the news about Jianshi San that they had received from the Blessed Land a few days ago. No one had any intention of comparing themselves with him, and they directly brought Jianshi San into the Grotto Heaven Bridge. When they emerged from the Grotto Heaven Bridge, they were already outside the Zhuge Grotto Heaven's territory. Long Chen was already standing in the sky. The 9 of them brought Jianshi San straight to Long Chen. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Master. The 9 of them bowed one by one. Just as they were about to speak, they saw Jianshi San also bowing to them. Long Chen's eyes fell on Jianshi San's figure, and he couldn't help but smile. Long Chen saw everyone's puzzled faces and said, he's considered your senior brother, don't be so surprised. Senior brother? Zhuge Ziyun and the others froze. This guy who was famous in the Blessed Land was actually their senior brother. We have offended you earlier, please forgive us. Zhuge Ziyun was the first to speak, and the other 8 people behind him also bowed. Jianshi San returned the greeting and said, I've always been a little reckless. I don't blame you. Long Chen stepped forward and said, I'll wait for you guys in the hall with him. Go and prepare some wine. Everyone looked at each other and smiled when they heard this. Then, they tore through the air and left. Long time no see. You look more and more like a sword. Long Chen stared at Jianshi San and teased him. The 2 of them recalled the events of the past in the corpse world and couldn't help but raise their heads and laugh. They stepped into the palace one after another. Inside the palace, Long Chen asked, how did you know I was here? Jianshi San didn't answer, but a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His right hand turned into a sword and pointed in the air. A series of ripples spread out in the void. Long Chen's pupils could not help but shrink. This scene seemed simple, but in fact, it was extremely terrifying. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul also took the initiative to speak. This person is the same as you. He is formed from my internal organ's true spirit, but he really has an incredible talent in the sword Tao. He actually integrated his sword Tao into the ancient Saint Divine World's Tao law. No wonder he can achieve so much. He has really brought out the sword Tao's crownless to the extreme. Longchen nodded, but a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said to Jianshi-san, since you've come after smelling my sword Tao, why don't I have a few moves with you before the food and wine are served? Jianshi-san's illusory eyes lit up when he heard the word sword Tao. Please guide me, master. He left Longchen and walked alone in the ancient Saint Divine World because he wanted to reach a higher level of sword Tao cultivation. However, even though he left, Longchen was still his master in his heart. This would never change. Longchen looked at Jianshi-san's infatuation with the sword Tao and felt a sense of familiarity that he had not felt in a long time. The two of them flew into the sky. They left their seats as soon as they entered the palace. They soared into the clouds as soon as they entered. Rumble. Longchen held a longsword in his hand. Jianshi-san transformed into a sword soul. His body was like a sword ray. Before the two of them made a move, there were continuous explosions. Good sword, Jianshi-san said subconsciously. As soon as he finished speaking, rays of sword light crisscrossed in the void thousands of miles away and shot into the sky. Zhuge Ziyun and the other god emperors, as well as many god kings, looked up at the sky. The raging sword Tao swept through every corner like a storm. Everyone's eyes were cold, and they did not dare to look directly at the sky. Yao Yeji looked at the sky and muttered, "Now, do you still think it was wrong to follow Master to the Blessed Lands? We have the fate of the heavenly abode and can step into the God Emperor realm. Within the heavenly abode and even the Blessed Lands, we are not bad. But only by following him can we not only inherit the heavenly abode's fate." Everyone looked at the sky in a daze. God Emperor. God Emperor. Perhaps Longchen was their only chance to step into the God Emperor realm. Zhuge Ziyun looked at the resplendent light in the sky and was also in a daze. Do you think we really have a chance to reach the God Emperor realm in the future? Even if it's the weakest Nirvana Shatterer God Emperor, I would be satisfied. Not a single one of the 8 answered him. In the entire ancient sacred divine realm, there was a divide between the God Emperor realm and the God Emperor realm. The God Emperor realm. If the God Emperors were the backbone of the ancient sacred divine realm, then the God Emperor realm was an existence that could control the central continent. The God Emperor realm had a total of 6 small realms. As for what the God Emperor realm was in the central continent, Zhuge Ziyun and the others had no idea. It was not a realm that they could come into contact with. Any one of the God Emperors could destroy the entire heavenly abode and make this space disappear from the central continent. While everyone was in a state of confusion. In the sky, the battle between Longchen and Jianshi-san had come to an end. The battle lasted less than an hour. The two of them descended from the sky. Longchen looked at the 9 people with a smile and said, "Is the wine and food ready? Today, no one is allowed to use their divine power. No one is allowed to leave until they are drunk." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and the sword in his hand flew towards Jianshi-san. The sword floated in the air. Jianshi-san's shadow was somewhat stunned. Longchen walked into the main hall without looking back and said indifferently, "My sword Tao has not improved at all. It is not a shame that I lost to your disciple. You call me master. Since I lost, I have to give you a prize. This sword is for you." Jianshi-san was stunned. He still remembered that when he left, Longchen gave him the sword in his hand. Now, the sword was gone. The first time he met Longchen, Longchen gave him the sword again. No one knew the sword better than Jianshi-san. He knew the value of this sword. "Thank you, master." Jianshi-san bowed and did not refuse. Longchen's words did not give him a chance to refuse. Chapter 1076. The 9 God Emperors and Jianshi-san were seated below the stage. Long Chen was seated at the head of the table. Everyone was drinking. Jianshi San, on the other hand, was just sitting there. He hadn't had a physical body for a long time. For the sake of sword cultivation, he had transformed himself into a sword and used the technique that the Emperor Lord's remnant soul had given him to communicate with the ancient sacred god world. There was no way a sword could drink wine. However, they still drank until late into the night. The 9 god emperors had been ordered by Long Chen to drink until they were unconscious and brought away without using any divine power. Long Chen and Jianshi San were still full of stories. Jianshi San told them about how he had defeated many sword experts with the sword in his hand. Long Chen's blood boiled as he listened. The way of the sword had no crowns. Jianshi San was not bound by the coronation. His strength depended on the strength of the sword in his heart. Jianshi San couldn't help but sigh when he heard about Long Chen's story. Both of them came from the corpse world. It was not easy for them to gain a foothold in the ancient sacred god world in such a short time. I happened to run into the forces of the 5 blessed lands and took care of them. They probably won't come back for a while, Jianshi San said to Long Chen. Long Chen raised his eyebrows. The forces of the 5 blessed lands had escaped by relying on origin tools. Now that they had died at Jianshi San's hands, Long Chen had received a lot of help in his time of need. Then do you think I should bring them with me to the Blessed Lands territory? Long Chen muttered to himself. It's dangerous for the Grotto Heaven forces to set foot in the Blessed Lands now. Jianshi San understood Long Chen's concerns. Blessed Lands were filled with experts. There were many god emperors and even heaven-defying existences like god kings. Jianshi San pondered for a moment, then said, Heaven's Fate Palace, perhaps you should go to Heaven's Fate Palace. However, Heaven's Fate Palace is still a force outside of the Blessed Lands. I'm afraid that relying on your status alone won't be enough to get them to support you. The Heavens Will Palace owes me a favor, and they once said that this favor wouldn't be long. It seems that they were referring to this matter. Long Chen was stunned. Was the Heavens Will Palace really that miraculous? After a long while, Long Chen laughed in spite of himself and said, Since they have already calculated it, then let's make a trip there. The next day, Long Chen immediately ordered all the Grotto Heaven forces to head to Paradise in 10 days. Those who are willing to follow can gather at the place where the heavenly abode used to be. The strength of this trip to the Blessed Land. Long Chen didn't know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Whether he stayed or left was entirely up to him. 10 days later, Jianshi San and Long Chen were already standing at the original location of the cave. He gazed into the distant sky. 2 majestic troops were gradually approaching them. Long Chen wasn't surprised. The first 2 Grotto Heavens to appear were the Zhuge Grotto Heaven and the Ghost Python Grotto Heaven. After all, it was Yao Yiji's idea to enter Paradise and seek the support of the Heavens Will Palace. Zhuge Ziyun naturally wouldn't reject Yao Yiji's decision. Rumble. The 2 Grotto Heaven forces had just arrived 10,000 miles away from Long Chen and Jianshi San when they saw another mighty group following closely behind. All the Grotto Heaven forces had arrived. Are all of you willing to follow me to Paradise? Long Chen asked when he saw all the Grotto Heaven forces in front of him. Everyone nodded. Only the leader of the Wind Moon Grotto Heaven shook his head and said, We don't have any Emperor God in our clan, so we'll stay behind to guard the Grotto Heaven forces. After all, we still need someone to look after this place. Today, we're here to send you off. 10 forces, 10 pots of wine. After the wine, the people left. The 16 blessed lands occupied the center of the middle state. The area of influence of each blessed land was comparable to the total area of influence of the 32 Grotto Heavens. Every blessed land was extremely vast. Even if a god king were to travel by air, a round trip would take several months. It would probably take more than 10 years for a heavenly Grotto Heaven to traverse the blessed land. In front of us is the territory of the blessed lands. The nearest Grotto Heaven is the Great Void Blessed Land. That day, I was within the sphere of influence of this blessed land. That's how I sensed your mighty sword intent. Jian San made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and streaks of strange gray-white light flowed from his fingertips. Such an action! Zhuge Ziyun and the others were surprised. Yao Yaji even asked, "It's rumored that the 16 blessed lands are gathered at the center of the central continent because of the primal chaos domain, causing endless blessings to appear. It seems that this rumor is true." Indeed. Jian San nodded and said, "The reason why the 32 grotto heavens are called grotto heavens is because of the word blessed land. It's just that you don't have a true grotto heavens opportunity, while the 16 blessed lands all have heaven-defying blessed lands." Long Chen was also curious, and indicated for Jian San to continue. Jian San nodded and said, "In fact, I came to the Great Void Grotto Heaven a few days ago to enter the Great Void Cave of Time within the Great Void Blessed Land. This cave is one of the 18 blessed lands." The 18 blessed lands? The 16 blessed lands control 16 blessed lands, and there are 2 that don't belong to any faction. The first is the ancient forbidden fiend god grounds. The second is the ancient battlefield of fortune. Jian San's eyes were filled with excitement when he talked about the 2 blessed lands, as if he was extremely eager to go there. Long Chen saw that Jian San was distracted, and said, "We'll talk about this later. How long will it take for us to reach the Heaven's Fate Palace, and how many blessed lands will we pass through?" "Under normal circumstances, it will take at least 2 years, and we'll pass through 4 blessed lands," Jian San replied. 2 years? Long Chen frowned slightly. At this moment, they were leading a total of 9 grotto heavens, not to mention the numerous divine kings, and countless venerable sovereigns. 2 years was enough for the 5 great factions to react, and they would be intercepted before they could reach the Heaven's Fate Palace. Yao Yiji also said in a low voice, "Why would it take so long? The ancient records of my clan say that it should only take 3 months to reach the Heaven's Fate Palace from the Grotto Heavens territory." Jian San smiled, as if he had already guessed that she would say this. 3 months to reach the Heaven's Fate Palace. This is the road we're going to take, but you'll have to be prepared for a big battle. Jian San said with a hint of playfulness. Long Chen took a deep look at Jian San. He did not expect Jian San to have such a deep understanding of the central province in such a short time. It seemed like this magnificent ancient sacred divine world was also a place filled with challenges for him. "Then let's continue. We'll see how powerful the experts in the blessed lands are," Long Chen said lightly. Chapter 1077. Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation. This was a fixed teleportation formation that connected the Great Void Blessed Land and the other blessed lands. Simply put, it was not much different from a Grotto Heaven bridge. Of course, its effect and function could not be mentioned in the same breath. The Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation could teleport hundreds of thousands of people at once. It required the use of any origin stones. It could only rely on the chaotic energy that overflowed from the chaotic domain. In the entire blessed land, there were only a few dozen such teleportation arrays. The group traveled north for 10 days. The location of the Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation was right in front of them. Jian San's expression became more serious at this moment. He said to Zhuge Ziyun, Long Chen, and the others, "The Great Void Blessed Land's territory is vast. They will soon notice you bringing so many people here. Therefore, it's best to pass through the Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation as quickly as possible. If not, we can only use some other methods." Long Chen nodded. Just as Jian San said. The Great Void Blessed Land was one of the 5 blessed lands that entered the Grotto Heaven forces. In fact, the Great Void Blessed Land was the closest to the Grotto Heaven forces. It was also one of the blessed lands that Yufeian relied on. They were the clearest about what happened to the blessed lands. The longer they stayed here, the more dangerous it would be for them. According to Jian San, as long as the Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation was activated, they would be free from many threats. The Great Void Cloud Piercing Formation was getting closer and closer. It was a huge disc-shaped building. The building stood in the air. There was nothing below it to support it. There were only streaks of gray lightning pillars flashing continuously. The scene was very magnificent. Long Chen and the others had just arrived. They attracted the attention of the people around them. The 9 great grotto heaven forces had close to 1,000 divine kings and countless venerable sovereigns. It was rare to see such a large group of people appear. Which blessed land is this? It's not wise to send out 10 divine emperors at this juncture. Since more than 10 inextinguishable Tao laws disappeared a few days ago, the world origin has begun to appear. The blessed lands are all eyeing it covetously. While many people were talking, many people even followed Long Chen and the others to the great void cloud traversing matrix. It seemed that they wanted to see which force Long Chen and the others belonged to. Long Chen frowned and asked the Emperor Lord's remnant soul about what he had heard. World origin. This was not the first time Long Chen had heard this phrase. When he was deep inside the North Foot territory, he heard that a divine king had been born in the 9 continents Spirit Mountain range. Then, it was divided into 2 territories, and a large number of emperors were recruited to compete for the world's origin. He didn't expect to hear this phrase again today. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul had yet to open its mouth. Jianshi San seemed to have seen through Long Chen's thoughts and said in a low voice, "After I left the North Foot territory, I went to the 9 continents Spirit Mountain territory. The Spirit Mountain Divine King was lucky enough to merge with part of the Emperor's body. The 9 continents Spirit Mountain realm's inextinguishable Tao law is collapsing much faster than the North Foot realm. The world's origin is already overflowing. Right now, the world origin of the 9 continents spiritual mountain realm should be in the hands of the ancient Emperor Blessed Ground." When Jianshi San spoke, the Emperor's remnant soul had already explained to Long Chen what the world's origin was. The world's origin, as the name suggested, was the origin of the ancient Saint Divine World. Every large territory had its own world origin, and it was also once personally divided by the ancient Saint Divine World's master. The person who controlled the world's origin could control the life and death of a territory. The power of life and death here didn't just represent the lives of living beings, but all the Tao laws of the entire territory covered by the world's origin. The ancient Emperor Blessed Ground controlled the world's origin of the 9 continents Spirit Mountain realm. According to the Emperor's remnant soul, the ancient Emperor Blessed Ground could completely rely on the world's origin to refine the entire 9 continents Spirit Mountain realm, causing the entire ancient Saint Divine World to no longer have the 9 continents Spirit Mountain realm. At this moment, Long Chen finally understood why the influence of the Blessed Ground had no intention of extending outwards even though the inextinguishable Tao law was gradually disappearing. What they really wanted to fight for was the world's origin. Compared to the world's origin of the North Foot territory and the 9 treasures realm, the Middle Continent's origin was the most crucial place in the entire ancient Saint Divine World. At this point, Long Chen could already feel a turbulent undercurrent brewing. Once the world's origin of a Blessed Ground's origin began to leak out, the entire ancient Saint Divine World with the Blessed Ground's origin as the center would be completely thrown into chaos. It might even cause the Divine Kings to take action. Jianshi San? The group had just stepped onto the huge circular platform of the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation when they heard the gazes of the 2 people from the Great Void Blessed Ground land on Jianshi San. Jianshi San didn't seem to have the intention to pay attention to the 2 of them. He only said calmly, "I want to bring them to use the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation." The 2 of them laughed awkwardly, obviously quite afraid of Jianshi San. One of them heard and said, "So many of you, I wonder which Blessed Ground force are you heading to?" Jianshi San immediately turned into a sword radiance, exuding a chilling aura. He said, "You just have to follow the rules. There's no need to talk so much." The 2 of them laughed bitterly. Although they had doubts in their hearts, they could only swallow them down. Jianshi San's current reputation within the Blessed Ground's sphere of influence was almost the same as the reputation of the divine sons of the other blessed lands. When Jianshi San walked out of the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation a few days ago, even the elders of the Great Void Blessed Ground who were stationed here had the intention of recruiting him. "Prepare to activate the Great Void Array," Jianshi San said, his tone carrying a hint of excitement. The two of them nodded in motion for Long Chen and the rest of the God Emperors to enter while the venerable sovereigns stayed outside. Long Chen and the rest entered one after another. The people around them all narrowed their eyes and revealed looks of shock. Jianshi San, Zhuge Ziyun, and the other God Emperors were all walking behind Long Chen. They couldn't help but be curious about Long Chen's battle prowess and identity. After Long Chen and the other God Emperors entered, the two people from the Great Void Blessed Ground whispered to each other, "There's nothing strange about the clothes these people are wearing, and we can't tell which clan they are from. They must be hiding on purpose. 10 God Emperors, which blessed ground do they belong to? Find a way to find out." After the two of them finished talking, they followed closely behind and entered the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation's round platform. Inside the round platform, the brilliance was unceasing. Array after array flashed, and the people who came and went disappeared while others appeared. Many people chose to pay large amounts of origin stones to pass through. Several groups of peak divine kings led more than 10,000 people into this place and left a mark after they left. The Great Void Blessed Ground specially sent a few people to remind them that they could use the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation when they returned, as if they really wanted them to challenge the Great Void Array. When Long Chen and the rest arrived at the center of the round platform, they understood the reason. At the center of the round platform was a stone tablet. On the stone tablet were the rules to pass through the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation. Chapter 1078. When godly kings and above led hundreds of people to use the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation, they would choose to challenge the Great Void formation to avoid paying a large number of source stones. This formation was also known as the Gate Formation, and the Great Void Formation was one of them. In fact, very few godly kings and above in the Blessed Lands would challenge this formation. They would only do so as a last resort. The reason was, the Blessed Lands could use this formation to keep the people who stepped into it for their own use. This was also the reason for the name of the Gate Formation. The two words Gate Formation referred to the gate they entered. The Grotto Heaven's teleportation formations would recruit many people every year, but now that the undying Tao Law was fading, many people were gradually preparing to change this rule. Of course, most of the people recruited through this method were at the forefront of the war. If one day the undying Tao Law could no longer restrain them, the people recruited would probably become a problem in the future. Stay for 100 years? Zhuge Ziyun and the others looked at each other with serious expressions on their faces. They did not want to stay in the Great Void Blessed Lands and be ordered around by others. Jianshi San looked at everyone's solemn expressions, and a smile flashed across the corners of his mouth as he said, "It is said that the Void Formation is not considered powerful among the Gate Formations. Just do your best." Long Chen nodded and his expression changed slightly. He said to the people of the Great Void Blessed Lands on the round platform, "Please activate the Great Void Formation. We are ready to challenge." The Great Void Blessed Lands was not a place to stay for long. These people guarding the formation were quite afraid of Jianshi San, but if they continued to stay here, it would be difficult to avoid any more trouble. Long Chen's voice fell. The people around all moved closer. Everyone could see that Long Chen and the others were godly emperors. It was rare for godly emperors to challenge the Gate Formation. An emperor god was considered a rare expert even among the forces in the various blessed lands. Under normal circumstances, the Blessed Lands would prepare many source stones for them to avoid challenging the Gate Formation when passing through the teleportation formation. Of course, there were very few godly emperors who would be trapped by the Gate Formation, but it was not impossible. For example, in the Blessed Great Void Lands, he was ranked third under the Son of God, Dongfang Pa. Because this person failed to pass through the travel formation, he was restricted by the Great Void Blessed Land for 100 years. In the end, this person was nurtured by the Great Void Blessed Land, and in just 100 years, his name shook the entire Blessed Land. 100 years passed. However, this person was unwilling to return to his original faction in the Blessed Land. Instead, he became a member of the blessed land of Great Void. The experts of the Great Void blessed land who were guarding the place came one after another. More than 10 emperor gods appeared in front of Long Chen and the others. Long Chen's heart trembled slightly as he became even more fearful of the strength of the blessed lands. He could not help but feel fortunate that no god emperor had gone to the blessed lands that day. More than 10 emperor gods from the Great Void blessed land stared at Long Chen and the others for a while, then looked at Jianshi San and said in a deep voice, "The Great Void array will be activated in 30 breaths. If you can get out of the array within 3 days, you can choose to teleport to any place in the Great Void blessed land that has an array." Long Chen and the others nodded. 30 breaths passed in the blink of an eye. A dazzling light pillar suddenly shot up into the sky from the area surrounded by the emperor gods from the Great Void blessed land. The light pillar shot straight up into the sky and only fell down after reaching a height of 1,000 meters. The light pillar split into 3 and landed on the round plate. With the round plate as the foundation, a door with flowing brilliance was formed. The door was 100 meters long and wide. Although the door frame was antique, it gave people a feeling that it was both real and illusory at the same time. The complicated Tao patterns on the door made people's hearts palpitate. "Enter the array," Long Chen ordered. He turned into a stream of light and entered the light door. Jianshi San and the others followed closely behind. After everyone had disappeared, the people from the Great Void blessed land looked at each other. This time, Long Chen was the one who gave the orders, but no one had any information about Long Chen. No one here could even call out Long Chen's name. Which blessed land is this person from? He even took Jianshi San as his subordinate. The leader of the Great Void blessed land's emperor gods muttered to himself. The few people beside him nodded. One of them said in a deep voice, "Jianshi San is quite famous in the blessed land. He has already defeated several sword cultivators. Now that he has become a member of another blessed land, we can't just stand by and do nothing." This person's voice was getting lower and lower. In the end, there was a hint of murderous intent. Everyone fell silent. The leader waved his right hand. The blue brilliance of divine power formed a light screen that was 100 meters long and wide in the air. Long Chen and the others were on the light screen. After doing all this, this person pondered for a moment and said, "We don't know which blessed land this group of people is from. If we act rashly, we will easily cause trouble. The central province can't afford any disturbances. Investigate the background of this group of people and find Dongfang Pa. I remember that he is not far from us. We should be able to get there in 3 days." In the light screen, Long Chen and the others seemed to be in the void. Ripples rippled under their feet. It was as if they were on the surface of the sea. Every part of their bodies was covered with dense silk threads. These silk threads were filled with the power of a strange array and outlined every part of the space in front of them. The place where the 11 people were standing was divided into independent areas. Everyone stood there in a daze. It has been a long time since the Emperor Gods challenged the array. These 11 people are challenging it at the same time. It can be considered a grand event. This looks like the 3 stars array. It seems that the Great Void blessed land has no intention of holding back. Guess who will be the first to walk out, and how many of them can't pass the array? It should not be difficult for the Emperor Gods to pass the array. However, it is hard to say for the 3 stars array. 1 or 2 of them may be left behind in the Great Void blessed land. Everyone's eyes were on the light screen. It was rare for 11 Emperor Gods to challenge the array at the same time. It was a great opportunity for divine kings and venerable sovereigns to watch the Emperor Gods fight at such a close distance. Naturally, no one present would miss this opportunity. The people in the light screen seemed to be in independent spaces. However, in the eyes of the people outside, although they had crossed the light door, they were still standing in the center of a bright Tao pattern. Each of them was only 100 steps away from each other. This was the Great Void Array. The Great Void Blessed Lands Array. In the array, everyone stared blankly at the void, only to see a silhouette slowly tearing apart the Tao Law and the silky threads. including Long Chen. Everyone was on guard as if they were facing a great enemy. Jianshi-san immediately transformed into the shape of a sword and rose unsteadily. Jianshi-san had just transformed into the form of a sword soul when he saw the person in front of him disappear without a trace. His expression suddenly changed. Chapter 1079. Under everyone's watchful eyes. Above the great void cloud-piercing formation, many people who were watching widened their eyes. They never thought that the three stars formation would appear in such a manner. Inside the water screen, in front of Long Chen and the others, people who looked exactly like them appeared. These people had Dao patterns all over their bodies. Their eyes were emotionless, but the aura they exuded was no different from Long Chen and the others. Every one of them was an emperor god. This was the Great Void formation that the Great Void Blessed Land had set up here. Through the Great Void formation, they could lead the team behind them through the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation. Rumble. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen and the others in the blue light screen were already fighting with the people who looked exactly like them. A mighty pressure spread across the entire round platform from all directions. Long Chen and the others still seemed to be standing in the middle of the bright formation pattern in the center of the round platform, but it was as if these bodies were just puppets. They were really fighting in the mysterious space. This scene made the onlookers speechless. This great void formation was really strange. At this moment, Long Chen and the other souls seemed to have been taken into another world to undergo a test, but their bodies were real in front of everyone. Zhuge Ziyun and the others displayed extraordinary fighting power in the light screen. The most attractive thing was where Jianshi-san was. In the entire space, it was as if there were only two meteors shuttling between heaven and earth. Only endless sword intent and killing intent could be felt. More than 10 emperor gods of the Great Void Blessed Land frowned as they stared at Long Chen. After a while, they all shook their heads. Jianshi-san was inexplicably respectful to Long Chen from the beginning to the end, which made them look forward to Long Chen's performance. They wanted to see Long Chen's depth. Now that they saw it, Long Chen didn't have any outstanding performance at all. Even the 10 people including Jianshi-san were 3 or 4 points behind him. This person doesn't seem to have any ability. You're overthinking. Just focus on Jianshi-san. Since this 3 stars array has been activated, they will not be able to break it in 3 days. At that time, Dongfangpa should be here. We just need to look after this group of people. Zhuge Ziyun was from the Forbidden God race, so he had a deep understanding of array Dao patterns. However, the mirror image in front of him was very troublesome to deal with. It wasn't rare to see an array formation like this that allowed people to fight against their mirror images, but this was the first time he had encountered one that was so difficult to deal with. These mirror images were even 30% stronger than them. Not only that, they were even able to launch the best counterattack against everyone's attacks, even if they were using inherited spells. Time ticked by. The crowd around him did not disperse at all. Instead, more and more people gathered. The God Emperor had been fighting for 2 days, but other than Jianshi-san, no one had walked out of the array. All of them had fought for 2 days in a row, and there was almost no time to take a breather. Among them, 5 or 6 people were already showing signs of exhaustion. As Long Chen moved, he gradually became impatient. 2 days was more than enough. He asked the Emperor Master's remnant soul, "My guess should be correct, right? This is a strange array formed by combining an illusion array, a killing array, and a spatial array." The Emperor Master's remnant soul replied, "That is indeed the case. In these 2 days, I have already found all the array cores inside. I can transmit them into your sea of consciousness at any time." Long Chen nodded in response. He was already prepared to end this battle of the array. This great void array was a rare experience for the rest of the people. If it were not for the fact that they could not stay for long, Long Chen would even let them slowly experience this strange array. Long Chen's dodging speed gradually slowed down. The mirror image behind him had no intention of staying behind. Instead, it attacked him even more crazily. At the same time, on the disk of the Great Void True Cloud-piercing array, the crowd gradually parted to the sides. 5 God Emperor powerhouses arrived one after another. The leader of the 5 God Emperors was a white-haired youth. This person retained the appearance of a youth, but he had a head of white hair, which gave people a sense of transcendence. The youth's gaze immediately turned to the azure light screen. "Master, why are you here?" One of the God Emperors of the Great Void Blessed Land hurriedly greeted him. His expression was very respectful. The man waved his hand and said casually, "Dong Fengpa was originally with me. However, a few days ago, he suddenly received a secret order to go to the territory of the paradise. Naturally, the news of you all reached my ears." 3 stars array, Great Void Illusory Array. The man's gaze never left the azure light screen. "How many days have they been in there?" He seemed to find the Battle of Long Chen and the others rather interesting. His gaze finally landed on Jian San. His eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "Is he that Jian San? He is indeed very strange. I originally wanted to travel to the Great Void Blessed Land with Dong Fengpa because I wanted to exchange blows with him. Now, I have arrived just in time." The leader of the God Emperors bowed and nodded. However, he could not help but glance at Long Chen. He has only been in there for 2 days. He could not help but say, "Jian San followed this person here. However, he does not seem to have any abnormalities." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly transmitted his voice to Su Kai through divine consciousness. "We do not know the details of these people. Including Jian San, there are a total of 11 God Emperors. Furthermore, they have a large number of venerable sovereigns with them. Are we really going to let them go? If this Jian San joins the other blessed lands, he will definitely become a formidable opponent." Su Kai brushed the white hair in front of his eyes. A hint of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. However, he shook his head. At this moment, the forces of the various blessed lands were closely watching the movements of the inextinguishable law and the world origin. A slight move by the God Emperors would affect the situation as a whole. If they violated the rules of the teleportation array and attacked, the Great Void Blessed Land would inevitably become the target of public criticism. Moreover, at this moment, they did not even have a clue which blessed land Long Chen and the others were from. Among the 16 blessed lands, there were a few that they could not afford to become enemies with no matter what. Boom, boom, boom. While the two of them were discussing, they heard a series of rumbling sounds coming from the center of the round platform. Everyone's attention was instantly attracted by this sound. However, their eyes immediately widened. They saw that Long Chen was actually walking step by step out of the light gate formed by the Great Void Teleportation Array. Not only that, he was even dragging 2 God Emperors with him, one on the left and one on the right. The moment he stepped through the light gate, the figures in the 3 spaces within the azure light screen turned illusory and disappeared without a trace. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen turned back and walked toward the other people. Then, he dragged them out of the light gate. The scene suddenly quieted down. No one had expected that Long Chen, who had always been mediocre, would make such an incredible move. Su Kai's expression also changed. His eyes had long since moved away from Jian San and landed on Long Chen. Chapter 1080. The Great Void Formation was the travel formation of the Great Void Blessed Land. The travel formation was very important to the Blessed Lands. In some ways, it was as important as the Grotto Heaven bridge between the Grotto Heavens. If Long Chen and the others had passed the challenge, the Great Void Paradise would have only exempted them from using origin stones. However, Long Chen's actions had caused Su Kai to be shocked. The reverse Great Void Formation. This had only happened 3 times since the establishment of the travel formations in the Blessed Lands. Out of the 3 times, 2 people had passed through the travel formations of their own blessed lands. Even so, the 2 blessed lands had to establish a new clan formation for this purpose. Long Chen did not know what Su Kai was talking about. He leaped into the light door again and brought the remaining 3 people out of the Great Void formation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He had just stepped into the Great Void formation. The entire Great Void formation changed color. In the azure light screen, the mirror images in front of everyone disappeared at the same time. Long Chen and the other 3 people who remained in the formation opened their eyes. They were still standing in the center of the light formation. Before they could figure out what was going on, countless Tao inscriptions covered the sky and enveloped them in layers. At the same time, outside the circular plate, there were countless screams of surprise. What's going on? How can this person pass through the Great Void formation? A 3-star Great Void formation is like walking on flat ground to him. Don't you see? This is no longer a 3-star Great Void formation. It's a 6-star Great Void formation. Which blessed land does this God Emperor belong to? He doesn't know what's good for him. He passed through the Great Void formation in front of so many people, passed through the Great Void formation. This person's footwork is a method to break the formation. Everyone's gaze fell on the center of the circular plate. Many people came to a realization. However, they could not help but feel that Long Chen was a little fearless. Even if he knew how to break the formation, he should not have passed through the Great Void formation so brazenly and let others know that he had broken the formation at a glance. Sukai led more than 10 God Emperors to the front of the formation. He stared at Long Chen with a gloomy expression. The Great Void Blessed Lands travel formation was built using the Great Void formation. It had a difficulty level of 9 stars, and a lot of resources and manpower were used to build it. Although Long Chen had only broken the 3 stars Great Void formation, the Great Void Blessed Land would have to completely replace the entire formation. This would be a huge loss. Long Chen looked at the mighty array formation around him and shook his head helplessly. The method to break the array was personally taught by the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul. How could he have known that it would end up like this? If he had known this would happen, naturally, he wouldn't do such a thing. The reason why he asked the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul about how to break the formation was so that he could leave the Great Void Blessed Land through the Great Void Cloud-piercing teleportation formation as soon as possible. Now, he had overreached himself. Zhuge Ziyun and the other God Emperors looked at the scene in front of them with ashen faces as they walked forward. Before they could get close, the dozen or so God Emperors behind Sukai leaped forward and stopped them. They said solemnly, "Since everyone has passed through the travel formation, you can bring your people through the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation. If you want to stay here and take a few more glances, that's fine too. However, it's best if you stay a little further away." The threat in the leader's words was self-evident. The aura around him was so mighty that it enveloped everyone. Zhuge Ziyun and the others' faces changed drastically as they retreated in shock. They had entered the God Emperor realm with the help of Long Chen. Now, everyone was at the first level of the God Emperor realm. They were no match for the dozen or so God Emperors from the Great Void Blessed Land. Long Chen, Jianshi San, and the other 2 God Emperors were still within the light door of the array formation. The array formation around them had yet to fully condense. Long Chen relied on the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul to vaguely hear their conversation. He hurriedly said, "Leave this place through the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation first. We'll think of another way." The meaning of Long Chen's words was self-evident. Even if Zhuge Ziyun stayed here, once the Great Void Blessed Land discovered that they were from a grotto heaven, they would only be slaughtered. Zhuge Ziyun and the others looked at each other. Although their faces were extremely ugly, they could still see the situation before them clearly. Everyone started to retreat. When the Divine Kings from the Great Void Blessed Land saw this, they also looked at Sukai inquisitively. Sukai did not seem to be interested in Zhuge Ziyun and the others. He waved his hand, indicating for them to leave. Sukai stood outside the light door. His eyes never left Long Chen and Jianshi San. "I really want to know, which blessed land are you from? Why have I never seen you before? To be able to see through a 3-star Great Void array in such a short time, your attainments in array formation shouldn't be so unknown." Long Chen knew that Sukai had subconsciously assumed that they were from the Blessed Land. He went with the flow and said, "This has nothing to do with you. Are you trying to make us stay here today?" Sam laughed coldly and said, "You stopped the people from the blessed land from using the teleportation array formation and even attacked and killed them in the array formation. What are you trying to do?" The sharp words of the two made Sukai's face turn ugly. He swung his sleeves and said coldly, "You broke my tribe's array formation. I won't kill you today, but I won't let you leave either. As long as the few of you agree to return to the blessed land with me, we will let you go as you wish once we find another array formation to replace the Great Void Array." Sukai's thoughts were meticulous. He had already made his intentions clear to everyone in order to avoid suspicion between the blessed lands. Long Chen and Sam looked at each other. They knew that it was impossible for them to follow this person to the Great Void Blessed Land. It would be dangerous for them to stay here for even a minute, let alone a few months in the Great Void Blessed Land. Long Chen did not say anything. However, his divine will had already been transmitted to San and the other two. "I will break the array formation and find a chance to rush into the Great Void Cloud-piercing array. If there is no chance, I will escape." Long Chen had already prepared for the worst. San nodded, "I can bring one person with me." Long Chen replied, "If there is no way to rush into the Great Void Cloud-piercing array, the two of you will follow behind the two of us." Long Chen was extremely confident in San's speed. Furthermore, he had the sword refined by the world-suppressing cauldron in his hand. His combat power should be comparable to a middle-stage god emperor. Seeing Long Chen and the others remain silent, Sukai snorted coldly. He then shouted to the people behind him, "Watch over them. As long as the array is about to be broken, increase the grade of the array and trap them here. Try not to have any conflicts. Pass down the order to the clan. Get everyone to prepare the array formation." As Sukai turned around, the God Emperor by his side could not help but snort coldly, "These two people really don't know what's good for them. If not for the fact that there are so many people around, why don't we just let them out and suppress them?" Within the array, Long Chen said to San and the others, "You guys can continue acting as if you were trying to break the array. I need more than 10 days to detonate this array." Chapter 1081. Ever since Long Chen used the inverted void formation, Sukai had banned everyone from using the void formation. Apart from 2 or 3 teams of 10,000 people who had no choice but to pay a large amount of origin stones, no one else needed to use the inverted void formation. At this time, Zhuge and the others had already led the emperors through the void cloud-piercing formation. Long Chen and the others were still standing in the formation. Sukai and the god emperors of the blessed land of Great Void, as well as the onlookers, had long lost interest in watching Long Chen and the others break the formation. Everyone was puzzled. Why did Long Chen and the others refuse Sukai's suggestion? The various forces of the blessed lands were in a tense situation because the inextinguishable Tao laws were fading and the world origin was gradually revealing. The blessed land of Great Void would not kill the 4 god emperors because of this. Besides, San was among them. This guy's reputation was not much different from the god-children of the blessed lands. If he had really joined the forces of the other blessed lands, once he died, it would definitely cause a stir. This was something the blessed land of Great Void did not want to see. Inside the formation, Long Chen and the others were still trying to break the formation. However, at this moment, their situation was not optimistic. Especially the other 2 god emperors apart from Long Chen and San. The 2 of them were first-level god emperors, and now that they had been bombarded in the formation for more than 10 days, they were in a sorry state. One of them even had many bone-deep wounds. Long Chen turned around and let out a long breath. He transmitted to the others, "I can completely detonate this void formation at any time. Now, I just need an opportunity. The 2 of you, follow closely behind us. We'll take you with us." As soon as he finished speaking, before the 2 of them could answer, his eyes abruptly looked into the distance. High up in the sky, a dazzling light broke through the air at an extremely fast speed. The surrounding people also looked at the object that broke through the air. Sukai and the others of the blessed land of Great Void saw this and rose into the air as if they were facing a great enemy. Among them, one of them shouted, "This is our tribe's divine transmission talisman. Why is it coming straight here?" Sukai said in a deep voice, "This divine transmission talisman has Dongfang Po's aura. He should still be in the Paradise's territory. Why did he use the divine transmission talisman? Could it be that there is someone in the grotto heaven who can fight against him?" After saying that, Sukai leaped into the air and grabbed the talisman with his hand. Meanwhile, Long Chen's eyes shone brightly as he stood in the middle of the formation. This was the best opportunity. Is there anyone on the teleportation array? Can you break the formation? Long Chen asked Jianshi San with his divine sense. Jianshi San transformed into a sword aura, but a telepathic thought came out of it and said, "It can be broken." After saying that, at almost the same time, Long Chen frantically tapped on the light screen in front of him. Rumble! The moment the light fell, the entire void formation let out an earth-shaking roar. At this moment, the crowd didn't even have time to turn around. They were all stunned. A moment ago, they were still focusing all their attention on the divine transmission talisman. In the next moment, a vast wave of chi came from behind them. At this moment, Sukai was already holding the divine transmission talisman in his hand. When he and the dozen emperor gods turned around, they saw the center of the disk. The violent divine power was surging like a tsunami. The Tao inscriptions of various formations collapsed, and the divine power swept in all directions. At the same time, Long Chen, Jianshi San, and the others rushed toward the void cloud-piercing formation at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, there were still a few people on the void cloud-piercing formation who were ready to go through the teleportation array. The light of the teleportation array was already flickering. How is this possible? They actually detonated the void blessed land's teleportation array. How high is this person's attainment in the Tao of formations? Does this guy want to fight to the death with the void blessed land? Detonating the teleportation array is simply a slap to the void blessed land's face. They want to rush toward the teleportation array and escape from here. I wonder if they are from the void blessed land. Sukai almost subconsciously opened his mouth and said, "Stop them and seal the teleportation array." At the same time, the divine teleportation talisman in his right hand had already sent the divine consciousness imprint into his sea of consciousness. This talisman was indeed an order from Dongfang Pa. One by one, the scroll appeared in it. Sukai's face gradually changed color. These people were Long Chen, Zhuge Ziyun, and the others. It even stated that Long Chen was the Emperor Master's successor. Do your best to stop them and destroy the void teleportation array. Don't let them leave this place. Sukai's previous appearance was, of course, gone. Many people from the void blessed land were puzzled when they heard this. They did not know why Sukai would rather destroy the teleportation array to stop Long Chen. Even if the teleportation array was destroyed, it would not be as good as the void cloud-piercing formation. Although they were puzzled, the guards in front of the teleportation array hesitated for less than a breath. They waved their hands, and divine light flashed. They were about to completely shut down the void cloud-piercing formation. Sukai's body ignited with streaks of void fire that shot into the sky. The vast power of his body fell toward Long Chen, Jianshi San, and the others. On the other side, many god emperors immediately launched attacks and besieged. However, they were still one step too late. There were two reasons. First, they really did not expect Long Chen to detonate the teleportation array regardless of the consequences. They also did not expect him to have the ability to do so. Second, Long Chen detonated the teleportation array at the right time. Everyone's attention was still on the teleportation talisman a moment ago. The next moment, such a thunderous scene appeared in front of their eyes. The contrast between before and after made even the god emperors hesitate. At this moment, 1 or 2 breaths were enough to change the situation. Everyone's attacks had yet to arrive. Long Chen, Jianzhi, and the other 3 had already rushed to the void cloud-piercing formation in this short period of time. They were scheming against an unsuspecting opponent. No matter how fast Su Kai and the others were, they could not catch up. Sword Principle, Soul-Suppressing Break. Azura Whirling Elephant. Long Chen and Jianzhi each launched an attack in the shortest time possible. 2 attacks condensed in an instant. Unexpectedly, they were not offensive attacks. The only thing that could be seen was the people guarding the teleportation array and those who were preparing to pass through the teleportation array. Their eyes were filled with confusion. It was as if their souls were being controlled. The few people guarding the teleportation array could not move an inch under Long Chen's visualization technique. The divine light in their right hands was even about to touch the void cloud-piercing formation. However, Long Chen and Jianzhi's attacks still slowed them down. They prevented the people guarding the teleportation array from destroying it. However, they also allowed the closest god emperors to appear on the other side of the teleportation array. The center of the 2 groups of people was the void cloud-piercing formation. They were about the same distance as Long Chen and the others. They were even closer. These god emperors should have been guarding the teleportation array. However, the teleportation talisman distracted them. Chapter 1082. The situation changed in an instant. Just a moment ago, Long Chen and the others were still struggling in the Great Void formation. Su Kai and the rest of the people from the Great Void Blessed Land had just seen the divine talisman. Now, they were fighting and even the Great Void formation had been completely detonated. The distance between the Great Void formation and the Great Void cloud-piercing teleportation formation was not too far. Long Chen and Jianzhi were also extremely fast. If there was no one guarding the formation, they would have already stepped into the formation. Although the person guarding the formation was restrained. The vast power of the 4 emperor gods was about to cut off Long Chen and the others' thoughts of stepping into the teleportation formation. As long as they stopped Long Chen and Jianzhi for a moment, Su Kai and the other emperor gods from the Great Void Blessed Land would be able to stop them. At that time, Long Chen and the others could only be suppressed. When Long Chen and Jianzhi saw this, their divine power surged out like tea, emitting a terrifying aura. However, they did not intend to take the attacks of the 4 emperor gods head-on. They only used all their divine power to perform their body movement techniques, increasing their speed to the maximum. They knew that if they were stopped for a moment, they would not be able to pass through the teleportation formation. If they could not pass through the teleportation formation, they could only brace themselves and escape. At that time, no one dared to say that they would be able to leave the Great Void Blessed Land unscathed. The blessed land of the Great Void was vast. 2 emperor gods were nothing. Rumble. The 2 of them did not dare to slow down. They only hoped to rush into the teleportation formation before the 4 emperor gods blocked it with their divine power. At the critical moment, the 4 emperor gods' divine light was about to completely seal the teleportation formation. Su Kai and the others let out a long sigh of relief. They could not help but sneer. Long Chen and Jianzhi saw that the divine light in front of them was about to envelop the last few meters of land. Their hearts sank to the bottom. The 4 emperor gods' divine light was not considered powerful. The 2 of them could easily break through it. But at the same time, they would also be trapped here by everyone. Jianzhi roared. His sword intent shot up into the sky. He shouted, "Go!" Long Chen gave up the idea of rushing into the teleportation formation almost at the same time. Under countless gazes. However, Long Chen and Jianzhi felt a powerful force pushing them towards the last area where the light curtain had yet to close. Meanwhile, the weight on their backs suddenly lightened. The 2 god emperors that the 2 of them had brought along with them had actually left the 2 of them at the same time. Long Chen and Jianzhi subconsciously turned around. Pairs of eyes were imprinted in his eyes. His eyes were filled with determination and a hint of pleading. Rumble! The glaring divine light almost instantly covered the sky. The vast and mighty force shattered the light screen and blasted Long Chen and Jian Shisan out of the teleportation array. The two God Emperors didn't utter a single word. Their corporeal bodies were destroyed and their divine souls were destroyed. They used their God Emperor cultivation to help Long Chen and Long Chen leave this place. When Jian Shisan saw that Long Chen was slowing down, he immediately shouted, "Let's go, or they'll die in vain." The two of them almost landed on the teleportation array. The two God Kings who were originally standing on the teleportation array were so shocked that they couldn't stop trembling. Long Chen took a deep breath. With a move of his right hand, Jian Shisan's figure gradually disappeared into the teleportation array. The killing intent in his eyes was unprecedentedly strong. The two of them gradually faded. Long Chen's gaze was as sharp as a blade as it swept past Su Kai and the other people from the Great Void-blessed land. This one glance. It made everyone's hair stand on end. Their bodies couldn't help but freeze. Su Kai helplessly grabbed with his right hand and watched as Long Chen and Jian Shisan disappeared into the teleportation array. Su Kai and the other God Emperors stood in front of the teleportation array almost immediately after Long Chen and Jian Shisan disappeared. A few God Emperors even tried to activate the teleportation array with their divine power. However, they realized that the array couldn't be activated. One of them said in a low voice, "They haven't done anything over the past few days. It seems like they've planned this beforehand. They're always paying attention to the Great Void Cloud-piercing array." The surrounding God Emperors nodded with a gloomy face. Although Long Chen and the other three were flustered, they weren't messy. Before they stepped into the teleportation array, they had already seen that someone was about to pass through the array. Everything was ready. They missed him so much. Everyone slowly turned to look at Su Kai. If it weren't for the divine summoning talisman, Long Chen would have had such a perfect opportunity. What exactly did the divine summoning talisman say? Why did Su Kai's attitude towards Long Chen and the others change so drastically? He even wanted to destroy the teleportation array to stop Long Chen? Everyone wanted to hear an explanation from Su Kai. Su Kai's face was frosty. However, he didn't say anything. His right hand directly burned the divine summoning talisman. He said, "Find out where the two of them went through the teleportation array. No matter the cost, we must capture the leader and bring him back." Everyone was even more confused. However, when they saw Su Kai's gloomy face, no one dared to ask. On the other side, Long Chen and Jian Shisan seemed to be in the void. Everything around them was like layers of white clouds. Although the two of them were in the teleportation array, they could still feel the passage of time. A full 7 days passed. The two of them opened their eyes. At this moment, they were already in another teleportation array. Plop! The two of them had just appeared. The two God Kings beside them immediately knelt on the ground with trembling legs. The people around them also looked at this place in surprise. Their faces were filled with confusion. Jian Shisan couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the two of them. When he saw that Long Chen didn't say a word, he could only sigh and ask the people around him, "What kind of blessed land is this?" The two God Kings guarding the array glanced at each other. Then, they walked up to Jian Shisan and replied, "Flowing waterfall blessed land. Do you have any difficulties?" The two God Kings could see that Jian Shisan and Long Chen were God Emperors. Their words were considered polite. Jian Shisan didn't answer. He only said in a low voice, "The two of us want to go to Blue Ocean blessed land. How many origin stones do we need?" The two God Kings guarding the array glanced at each other and replied, "Why don't the two of you try to pass the array? That way, you can save a lot of money." The God Kings wanted to say more, but Jian Shisan cut them off. "How many origin stones?" The two God Kings shook their heads and didn't say anything else. It was normal for the two God Emperors not to want to challenge the array. They were just going through the usual procedure. If Long Chen and Long Chen were really willing to challenge the array and didn't pass, It would be a great contribution to the God Kings. 20,000 origin stones should be enough. Jianshir-san frowned slightly. 20,000 origin stones wasn't a small sum to him, but he still handed them over without hesitation. At this moment, he had to leave this place as soon as possible. Long Chen's identity had been exposed. His trip to the Heavenswell Palace would soon be known. The teleportation array in Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land was quickly activated. Long Chen and Long Chen disappeared once again. The two God Kings knelt beside the array. They didn't dare to raise their heads. Their bodies were covered in cold sweat. Chapter 1083. Long Chen and the others left Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land. The two God Kings who were teleported from Great Void Blessed Land to Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land told them about how Long Chen and the others had wreaked havoc in Great Void Blessed Land's teleportation formation. The people from Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land laughed when they heard about it, as though they were happy that Great Void Blessed Land was humiliated. However, 7 to 8 days passed. On the teleportation formation, more than 10 God Emperors were teleported over. The moment these people appeared, the God Emperors and God Kings from all around Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land gathered. Many people from other forces who were about to use the teleportation formation also retreated. The God King who was the leader of Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land stepped forward and mocked, "Why did you all teleport to Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land?" Although the various blessed lands were still peaceful, teleporting more than 10 God Emperors to other people's territory like Great Void Blessed Land was rare, especially when Sukai was among them. Sukai's position in Great Void Blessed Land was second only to God's Son. No one dared to underestimate him since he had personally led his people here. Sukai's gaze was cold and his face was gloomy. It seemed like he did not answer the question of Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land's God Emperors. His right hand moved in the air, and streaks of illusory light that seemed both real and illusory directly captured the two people who were guarding the formation. Rumble. Sukai's brazen attack immediately made the God Emperors from Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land feel like they were facing a great enemy. The leader of the God Emperors shouted, "Sukai, are you trying to start a war between the two blessed lands? You can't bear the responsibility." Sukai still ignored this person's words. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he asked the two guards in a deep voice, "Did these two people appear here? Which blessed land are they heading to? These two dared to detonate my tribe's teleportation formation. They are our sworn enemies. Please don't hide anything from us." Sukai's aura was overwhelming. The surrounding God Emperors looked at each other as they did not want to have a real conflict with him. The leader of the God Emperors frowned but nodded slightly, indicating for the two to answer Sukai. The two God Emperors said in a trembling voice, "They want to go to Blue Ocean Blessed Land. They have been gone for 7 to 8 days. Blue Ocean Blessed Land?" Sukai directly threw the two out, and with a wave of his right hand, a storage ring was directly thrown on the ground, and said in a deep voice, "Send us to Blue Ocean Blessed Land." The people of Flowing Waterfall Blessed Land looked at each other. The leading God Emperor grabbed the storage ring with his right hand. When he sensed that there were more than 100,000 origin stones inside, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The next moment, the man's expression returned to normal, and he waved his hand to signal the people behind him to activate the teleportation array. Light flickered. Within the transmission array, Sukai and the others disappeared without a trace. After everyone disappeared, a few God Emperor powerhouses couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Looks like those two people really angered Sukai this time. I'm afraid they won't be able to live for long. Detonating the travel formation is a great humiliation. Moreover, Sukai and the others have only just caught up. I'm afraid that part of the void cloud piercing formation has been destroyed. Everyone was talking about it. The leader pondered for a moment, then shook his head. His right hand pressed down slightly, indicating for everyone to be silent. After a long while, "Just now," he said to a skinny God Emperor powerhouse, "you go to Blue Ocean Blessed Land too. Think of a way to find out what Sukai and the others want to do." If it's really just for revenge, you can just come back directly. Sukai came personally just to hunt down 2 God Emperors. He even brought more than 10 people with him. Isn't he making a mountain out of a molehill? They didn't even care about the void cloud-piercing formation and casually threw down more than 100,000 origin stones. There's something fishy about this. After hearing this person's words, everyone thought about it and nodded. To Sukai, there was no need to make such a big fuss about 2 God Emperors. With more than 10 God Emperors going out together, they were probably prepared to fight with the other blessed lands. The skinny God Emperor nodded and stepped into the teleportation array, heading toward Blue Ocean Blessed Land. The territories of the Blessed Lands were simply too vast. Even if they used the teleportation array, it would take them several days to travel between the Blessed Lands and the forces. When everyone stepped into the teleportation array, Longchen and Jian Shan had already walked out of Blue Ocean Blessed Land's teleportation array. The 2 of them flew toward Heaven's Fate Palace without hesitation. During this time, Longchen didn't say a word. The gazes of the 2 God Emperors when they died were still lingering in his mind. The 2 of them didn't say a word, but they chose to sacrifice themselves at the last moment. This friendship made Longchen feel as if his heart was being squeezed tightly by someone. The 2 of them spent time with Longchen on Juga Grotto Heaven Peak. They already regarded Longchen as their master. Jian Shan saw this and couldn't help but shake his head. Master, you don't have to feel guilty. This is their choice. Jian Shan knew the situation better than anyone else. How could the 2 God Emperors not want to live? However, they clearly knew that they had become a burden to Jian Shan and Longchen. Based on their fighting power, if they didn't rush into the teleportation array, they would definitely die. They didn't have time to entrust the things in their hearts. You should know what they wanted to say. Jian Shan thought of the 2's gazes before they died and continued. In the end, they were begging me to take care of their people. Longchen took a deep breath and his eyes flashed coldly. It seems that many forces in the Blessed Lands want my life. I'll remember the Great Void Blessed Land. The 2 of them traveled and met up with Zhuge Ziyun in the depths of a mountain 5 days later. When they learned that 2 more God Emperors had died, many people fell silent. The atmosphere was somewhat depressing. They had just stepped into the Blessed Land's sphere of influence, but they had already lost 2 God Emperors. God Emperors might be important or not in the Blessed Land's sphere of influence, but to the various Grotto Heavens, they were the hope of their clans. The 9 Grotto Heavens only had 9 God Emperors. Now, before the Heaven's Fate Palace arrived, they had already lost 2. Yao Yiji stood up and said, "We still have 7 days to reach the Heaven's Fate Palace. As long as we get the support of the Heaven's Fate Palace, we can establish ourselves in the Blessed Land's sphere of influence. It's all worth it. As long as we can establish ourselves, more God Emperors will definitely appear." Everyone listened to Yao Yiji's words and their gazes finally fell on Longchen. They still remembered the miraculous birth of 10 God Emperors on Juga Grotto Heaven Peak. Go! Keep going! Keep going to the Heaven's Fate Palace. They had nowhere to go. They didn't want to think about whether the Heaven's Fate Palace would refuse to support them. They didn't dare to think about it either. The mighty army set off again. Countless venerable sovereigns, more than 1,000 divine kings, and God Emperor Jiuming, including Longchen and Jian Shan. The tide-like army passed through the mountains and steep ridges. Chapter 1084. Heaven's Fate Palace. It was beyond the major blessed lands. The people inside did not cultivate Dao patterns of formations, and their combat techniques were not unparalleled. Its overall strength was even weaker than the major blessed lands. But everyone in Zhongzhou knew. Heaven's Fate Palace was the most untouchable existence in Zhongzhou. The mighty team traveled day and night. Longchen and Jian Shan did not dare to slack off. When Longchen came from the Great Void Cloud-piercing formation, he did not have much time to completely destroy the teleportation formation. Sukai and the others were very likely to catch up. In fact, Sukai and the others had indeed been in hot pursuit, but they were still 2 days late. Long Chen and Jianzhi had already slowed down. As far as their eyes could see, the Heaven's Will Palace was already in sight. Long Chen raised his head and looked over. Looking at Heaven's Fate Palace, he could not help but gasp. The entire Heaven's Fate Palace was quite similar to the Imperial Palace. They were both tens of thousands of miles high in the sky. It was boundless. As far as the eye could see, it was like a boundless city standing in the sky, like another continent. Everyone in the surroundings reacted the same way. Many people even subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Jianzhi said lightly, "Heaven's Fate Palace in Zhongzhou has another name, Heaven's Fate City." The mighty team slowly approached Heaven's Fate Palace. Everyone's eyes were filled with excitement and awe. All of this was simply unimaginable to them in the past. A moment later, just as everyone approached Heaven's Fate Palace, Jianzhi turned into a sword light and swept through the sky. He wanted to be the first to report. Buzz. Jianzhi had just soared into the sky when he saw 2 divine lights coming toward him. The 2 divine lights were neither fast nor slow, but they happened to block Jianzhi's path. Jianzhi's figure paused. Long Chen saw this and frowned slightly. He moved forward and came to Jianzhi's side. Jianzhi turned into a soul in human form again. He turned back and gave Long Chen a look, indicating that he should not act rashly. He turned back and said, "Both of you, please report, Jianzhi." His voice came to an abrupt halt. The 2 of them didn't even look at him. They didn't even pay attention to what he was saying. The 2 from the Heaven's Will Palace scanned Long Chen back and forth with fiery eyes, as if they had placed all their attention on him. Long Chen's frown deepened. The way the 2 of them were staring at him made him feel very uncomfortable. "You must be the successor of the ancient Saint World Lord, right? I didn't expect him to be so young." The bald middle-aged man on the left clicked his tongue in wonder. The other man also moved his fingertips continuously, staring at Long Chen back and forth. Long Chen took a deep breath. This feeling of being viewed as a rare object made him feel very uncomfortable. However, he still had the God Emperors, God Kings, and venerable sovereigns behind him. He needed the support of Destiny Palace. Long Chen bowed to the 2 of them and said, "Please inform them that Long Chen has come to visit. This matter isn't urgent. Let the 2 of us take a good look at how you were able to shoulder the fate of the ancient sacred divine world and become the current generation disciple of the ancient sacred world master." Humph. Long Chen did not say a word. In his sea of consciousness, the God Emperor's remnant soul could not help but snort coldly and said, "How dare 2 people who have just glimpsed at your destiny," before he could finish his sentence. The 2 of them were shocked. One of them, who was constantly moving his fingers, even had his fingers crushed inch by inch, and a bloody mist filled the air. Puff puff puff. The 2 of them spat out blood and retreated repeatedly, staring at Long Chen in horror. Seeing this, Long Chen's expression did not change. Although the 2 of them did not have any ill intentions, they really made him feel uncomfortable. It was not wrong for the God Emperor's remnant soul to teach them a lesson. Long Chen pretended to be shocked and asked, "What's going on?" Jianzhi and the others stood to the side with a puzzled look on their faces. They had no idea what was going on. When the 2 of them saw Long Chen approaching, they immediately retreated and hurriedly said, "We overestimated ourselves and forgot the Palace Master's warning. You don't have to enter Destiny Palace. The Palace Master already knows why you're here. Destiny Palace will not support you to become a force in a blessed land." As the 2 of them spoke, a pool of ice water fell on everyone. This water extinguished all their hopes. The God Kings of the various grotto heavens shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Their smiles were full of self-mockery. Yes. This was the Central Region's blessed land force. It was the most fertile land in the entire ancient sacred divine world, and there was even the existence of the chaotic realm. How could a few God Emperors survive here? Jianzhi's face suddenly turned cold like a sword being unsheathed. He stepped forward and stood in front of the 2 and said coldly, Heaven's Will Palace still remembers that it owes me a favor. It's time to change. The two of them were not afraid of Jianshur-san at all, and a faint smile appeared on their faces. Longchen stepped forward and stopped Jianshur-san, indicating that he should not act rashly. Longchen looked at the two of them, then looked at the people behind him and said, "We want to enter the city." This should be enough. The two of them looked deeply at Longchen, then nodded. One of them even said directly, "This is the favor that Destiny Palace will give you. It should be enough to protect all of your lives, right? Please lead the way." Longchen did not let Jianshur-san continue speaking. He directly agreed to the two of them. The two of them turned and walked into Destiny Palace. Longchen and Jianshur-san followed closely behind. Jianshur-san's face did not look good. He originally thought that he could help Longchen gain the support of Destiny Palace. He did not expect that in the end, he would only get a place to stay. Longchen saw through Jianshur-san's thoughts, but said, "The Taishu blessed lands and the others should be chasing after us. Our situation will only become more and more difficult. Destiny Palace can let us stay for a short time, so we won't be in danger for a short period of time. It gives us a chance to breathe. As for what happens after that, we can plan." Jianshur-san nodded and followed behind Longchen, leading the people from the various grotto heavens into Destiny Palace. The mighty group entered Destiny Palace, which immediately attracted the attention of countless people. However, Jianshur-san and the others were able to clearly notice that the gazes of practically everyone present were gathered on Longchen. It was obvious. In Destiny Palace, Longchen's identity was no longer a secret. Ever since you came into contact with the forces of the Blessed Lands, you have probably been noticed by Destiny Palace. There are a few people in Destiny Palace who are really capable. The remnant soul of the Emperor was still very disdainful. This reminded Longchen of what the ancient Saint Emperor had said to him. If Longchen wanted to cultivate Destiny Palace, the remnant soul of the Emperor could train him into one of the top Destiny Palace cultivators in a short period of time. Of course, this was meaningless to the remnant soul of the Emperor. He would absolutely not allow Longchen to waste his time on this. They entered the city for nearly 6 hours. Chapter 1085. 3 places to stay? Longchen, Jianshur-san, and the others were stunned. What was the Heaven's Will Palace up to? Since the Heaven's Will Palace had guessed that they would come here, and that they would have to hide from the people of the Great Void Paradise, why would they prepare 3 places to stay? While everyone was still puzzled, the person leading the way handed a jade slip to Longchen. The person reminded him in a low voice, "Palace Master, let me remind you that you are new here, and choosing a place to stay is the most important thing." When Longchen received the jade slip, his pupils shrank and he nodded slightly. The jade slip was in his hand. Longchen's divine sense went deep into it. It was a general map of the Heaven's Will Palace. There were 3 places marked with red photoelectric signs. A simple observation showed that the positions of the 3 marked places were very different, and the intersection of the roads was not far in front of them. The closest one was in the center of the city, one of the many luxurious palaces. The other 2 were on the left and right, at the very edge of the Heaven's Will Palace. Before Longchen could open his mouth, the person leading the way spoke again, "Your Excellency, you can make your choice. We have to decide which way to go." Longchen put away the jade slip and said almost without hesitation, "Let's go to the road on the left." The person looked a little stunned, as if he did not expect Longchen to choose this place. He confirmed again, "Are you sure you want to choose this place? This is the leftmost border of the Heaven's Will Palace, and many people from other clans will gather here." As he spoke, the person could not help but look at the many divine kings and venerable sovereigns behind Longchen, Jianshur-san, and the other divine emperors. It was inevitable that venerable sovereigns would suffer some hardships if they came to this place. However, Longchen still nodded and confirmed it. The person did not say anything more. He went to the front again to discuss with another person, and then went to the left at the fork. In the center of the Heaven's Will Palace, In a strange palace of silver light, like dancing butterflies in spring, 3 women were bathing in a pool. The pool was no more than 100 meters long, which was nothing in this palace. The 3 women's eyes were clear and bright. They weren't ugly, but they weren't ugly at all. They were clearly 3 young girls, but they didn't have a single strand of hair. Their entire bodies were so white that it was somewhat horrifying. He chose the left yard. Left ward, interesting. Looks like this matter isn't over yet. Let's continue. Everything will depend on his own luck. Creation. Sharing the good fortune with the successor and disciple of the ancient Saint World Lord, no matter how you look at it, I still find it a little funny. As the 3 women talked, they began to play in the water. On the other side. After a full 13 days, Long Chen and the others finally arrived at the so-called left courtyard. Of course. If the Heavenswell Palace allowed them to fly, perhaps they wouldn't have wasted so much time. After the 2 guides brought them to the left courtyard, they gave Long Chen the command token for the formation of the courtyard and left directly without any intention to stay. Looking at the north courtyard, Long Chen let out a long sigh of relief. The Heavenswell Palace covered a vast area, almost exceeding the territory of the Blessed Lands. This might be the reason why it was called the Divine City. No matter what. It was really strange that such a vast area was suspended in the sky. Although the north courtyard was called a courtyard, its area was large enough for Long Chen and the others, as well as countless venerable sovereigns, to stay. At this point, Long Chen could finally put down the big stone in his heart. He turned to Zhuge Ziyun and the others and said, "Let them rest here. We've been in too much of a hurry these days." Along the way, although they hadn't experienced any great battles, everyone felt as if they were treading on thin ice. Their minds were tense, especially the venerable sovereigns. Their strength was considered the backbone of the Paradise Lands, but in the Blessed Lands, they were only considered the bottom. They were constantly afraid of losing their lives. 1 Emperor God? Or 2 Emperor Gods? The forces of the Blessed Lands could casually send out a few people, and it would be enough to kill countless venerable sovereigns and turn them into mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Zhuge Ziyun, Yao Yiji, and the others knew Long Chen's intention, so they directly called out to the people who carried the Heavenswell to calm them down. Everyone entered the north courtyard one after another. The majestic group in the north courtyard of the Heavenswell Palace suddenly became the focus of everyone's discussion. Long Chen's reputation as the Imperial Lord's successor spread like wildfire. Ever since Long Chen and the others moved in. Occasionally, there would be divine kings and even emperor gods outside to investigate. North Courtyard. Jianshi San and the others finally couldn't help but ask Long Chen, "Why did you choose such a place? What does the Heavenswell Palace mean?" "Don't care what they mean. They're not willing to support us to become a blessed land force. Without the support of the Heavenswell Palace, we'll become the laughingstock of the entire ancient sacred divine world if word gets out." Qiu Shan's words were very direct, without any intention of beating around the bush. Yao Yiji and Zhuge Ziyun glared at him fiercely. However, Long Chen revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth and said, "I feel that this matter is not set in stone yet." Long Chen's words. A glint flashed across everyone's eyes. The Heavenswell Palace had an unimaginable status in the entire Middle State. If they could really obtain their support to become a blessed land force, it would be like reaching the heavens in a single bound. Although their words were somewhat disheartened, they didn't want to miss even the slightest opportunity. "Master, did you see something?" Yao Yiji asked. Long Chen pondered for a moment, then replied, "I only have some guesses. The Heavenswell Palace doesn't seem to be unwilling to support us. Perhaps there's something we don't know about." As he spoke, Long Chen looked around and paused, then said, "At least they didn't ask us to pay for this place, nor did they say how long we can stay here. They're returning Jianshi San's favor, but aren't they also making things easier for us?" The light in everyone's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Everyone couldn't help but feel excited. Long Chen's words weren't without reason. In fact, Long Chen didn't have much confidence in himself, but he knew that everyone present needed confidence. Otherwise, their situation would only become more and more difficult. After a short moment of chatter, Long Chen's expression became more serious, and he said, "We don't have any clues about the Heavenswell Palace for now. Our top priority is to chase after the people from the blessed lands of the Great Void. According to the time, the people from the blessed lands of the Great Void must already be in the Heavenswell Palace." Everyone nodded. Chapter 1086. The northern district of Heaven's Fate Palace was much more lively than before. There was an endless stream of people on the streets. All kinds of people stayed outside the northern courtyard. Long Chen's name as the Emperor Master's successor had spread like wildfire. On the other side, just as Long Chen said, Sukai led the Great Void Blessed Lands Emperor gods into Heaven's Fate Palace. They were not in the northern district of Heaven's Fate Palace, but in the most luxurious restaurant in the central district of Heaven's Fate Palace. In the restaurant, Sukai's face was extremely gloomy. He had chased Long Chen all the way from Great Void Blessed Land, but he never thought that Long Chen's final destination would be Heaven's Fate Palace. Sukai sat on a chair beside the white jade round table in the room. In front of him were 3 old men who bowed. The 3 old men were dressed in luxurious silk robes with long crowns on their heads. Their eyes did not have the sharpness of cultivators, but they were more shrewd. They were merchants from Great Void Blessed Land who stayed in Heaven's Fate Palace. Many of these people from the various blessed lands stayed in the Heavenswell Palace. The news from Heaven's Fate Palace was enough to affect the forces of Great Void Blessed Land. They could deduce Heaven's fate and pry into Heaven's law. The 3 old men were only divine kings, but they were extremely respectful to Sukai. It was rare for someone of Sukai's status to meet them. Sukai did not speak, and they did not dare to speak. After a while, Sukai opened his mouth and said, "Long Chen has recently entered the northern courtyard of Heaven's Fate Palace. Have you heard of him?" The 3 old men nodded, but they already had a rough idea of what was going to happen. The leader said directly, "Young master, are you here for his title as the Sector Lord's successor?" Sukai nodded and signaled for him to continue. The Emperor Master's successor's name has spread throughout Heaven's Fate Palace in a short time. Many people know about it, and the forces of Great Void Blessed Land probably know about it too. Sukai frowned, and his face became even more gloomy. He regretted it. That day, Long Chen was in the formation. If he did not think that Long Chen was a member of Great Void Blessed Land, he would not have let Long Chen escape to Heaven's Fate Palace. Once the various forces in the Blessed Lands knew about the appearance of the Sovereign Lord's successor, they would quickly send their experts over. Sukai asked in a low voice, "Can you think of a way to take him down before the other forces arrive?" The 3 of them shook their heads, then nodded. An old man on the left explained, "This person is on good terms with Jianshi San, and Jianshi San saved the elders of the Heaven's Fate Palace before. It's almost impossible to make a move in the Heaven's Fate Palace." 10 days before Long Chen's arrival, the Heavenswell Palace had issued a ban, prohibiting the people of the Blessed Lands from fighting within the Heavenswell Palace. It seems that the Heavenswell Palace had long predicted that Long Chen would come here. They also clearly knew that all the forces of the Blessed Lands would gather here. Sukai was a little impatient. "Get to the point." The 3 of them laughed awkwardly and hurriedly said, "But Long Chen's residence is in the north courtyard, so everything is different. Why?" The north courtyard was cleared out before and after the ban was issued. Although the people inside are still in the north courtyard, compared to the north courtyard, it's like heaven and earth. The north courtyard is a place where dragons and snakes mix together in the Heavenswell Palace. The north courtyard can be said to be the best residence there, and the people who moved in before were from Aquamarine City. Aquamarine City? Sukai was stunned, but before the 3 of them could continue to explain, he suddenly understood. The matter of Aquamarine City was something that all the forces of the Blessed Lands had heard about. This was not a small matter for the Heavenswell Palace. Aquamarine City was originally a medium-sized city between the Heavenswell Palace and the flowing waterfall-blessed land. 100 years ago, 3 fairies were sent to the Heavenswell Palace. Since then, the entire city had been moved into the Heavenswell Palace. Now, the 3 fairies' status in the Heavenswell Palace was as high as the gods' will of the blessed lands. The people of Aquamarine City also received many benefits from the Heavenswell Palace, and the North Courtyard received unprecedented cultivation resources. The people of Aquamarine City do have the guts to ignore the ban, but will they really attack the people of the Heavenswell Palace? Sukai continued to ask. Aquamarine City is no longer the Aquamarine City of the past. In the past 100 years, the people of this city have become insatiably greedy, and their reputation in the Heavenswell Palace is terrible. Even so, they still found 3 fairies, and the Heavenswell Palace once gave them a Heaven's will. They definitely won't let this go. Hearing the 3's words, Sukai was finally certain. He stood up and said, "Then I'll go see the people of Aquamarine City." The 3 of them watched as Sukai was about to leave. The leader reminded, "Right now, the people in charge of the blessed lands have yet to come to the Heavenswell Palace. The Aquamarine City Lord is incomparably greedy and short-sighted. Young master, you should do your best to get this done as soon as possible." Sukai nodded and left without looking back. North Courtyard. The various grotto heavens were in a different mood from before. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood. More than 1,000 divine kings were cultivating day and night. The North Courtyard has a total of 232 places rich in primal chaos source energy. Cultivating here can be said to be twice the result with half the effort. No wonder the blessed lands can produce so many divine emperors. Not only that, there are also 10 spiritual fields in the Xian area of the North Courtyard. Although almost all of the divine herbs in them have been harvested, the medicinal properties of the remaining 1 or 2 layers of divine herbs far surpass what the grotto heavens have seen. The North Courtyard encompasses almost a third of the North District. It's enough for the 9 great grotto heavens to rest and recuperate here. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen and the others had been in the North Courtyard for half a month. Long Chen and Jian Shan walked along the official road that traversed the entire North Courtyard. Along the way, the people they met were full of respect and gratitude towards Long Chen. Long Chen could also clearly hear their discussions. However, Long Chen knew that all of this was not as good as it seemed on the surface. These people's happiness at the moment was not stable. Of course. In these days. Long Chen also clearly understood the status of the Heaven's Fate Palace in the Middle State. It was just as Yao Yiji had said when she was in the Grotto Heavens. Only by obtaining the support of the Heaven's Fate Palace could they gain a foothold in the Blessed Lands, and even become a true Blessed Land force. What exactly is the Heaven's Fate Palace thinking? After settling us down here, no one has come to ask about it. Jian Shan could not help but ask Long Chen. Long Chen did not seem to be in a hurry. He said indifferently, "The Heaven's Fate Palace spies on the inextinguishable laws and deduces the Heaven's fate." Perhaps they have already made their move. Jian Shan's pupils shrank. He seemed to understand Long Chen's meaning. Chapter 1087. The previous owner of Blue Water City's North Courtyard. Long Chen's smile widened when he heard these words. Perhaps this was the reason why Heaven's Fate Palace had asked him to choose 3 places to stay. Go and investigate the differences between the disciples of Blue Water City and the other 2 residences. Investigate the people who previously lived there as well. Bring back all the useful information, Long Chen said to Jian Shan. Jian Shan complied and quickly left North Courtyard. Long Chen walked unhurriedly to the North Courtyard's entrance and stopped the 2 sovereigns who were about to close the door. He said calmly, "Leave the door open. If anyone from Blue Water City comes to visit, tell them I'll be waiting for them in the Sky Hall." The 2 sovereigns nodded respectfully. Long Chen did all this and turned around to leave. Outside the door. Many people noticed this scene, and the people of Blue Water City were the first to bear the brunt. These days, the people of Blue Water City had been divided into 3 groups and had been monitoring North Courtyard almost all the time. North Courtyard was taken back by Heaven's Fate Palace and eventually fell into the hands of Long Chen and the others. Almost everyone in Heaven's Fate Palace knew about this. "Come, let's go in and have a look." A middle-aged man in a blue robe took the lead and walked out of a restaurant across the street. After this person walked out, more than 10 people on both sides of the street followed him. The 2 sovereigns guarding the door looked at each other, but they did not stop them. The 2 did not even ask if these people were from Blue Water City. Was there even a need to ask? More than 10 people from Jade Water City were extremely familiar with the Northern College, and they quickly arrived at the Sky Hall. Long Chen was sitting on the main seat in the hall at the moment. The leader of the group, a middle-aged man from Blue Water City, glanced inside the hall and saw that Long Chen was sitting alone. He stopped. Long Chen saw this scene and could not help but laugh. He said, "You've already come this far. Don't tell me you don't dare to come in." The middle-aged man snorted coldly and took a step forward, leading the crowd into the hall. The moment the Emperor gods behind this person stepped into the hall, they scanned the place with their divine consciousness. After a few breaths, they looked at each other and nodded. Only then did the middle-aged man feel a little more at ease. There was an additional arrogance in his eyes as he directly strode towards a chair at the side. After which, he opened his mouth and said, "Get out of the Northern Academy and we will not bother with you, get out of the North Courtyard." When Long Chen heard this, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart, "Since you've been expelled from Northern College, why don't you go to Heaven's Will Palace? Instead, you're here to cause trouble?" The middle-aged man's face froze. He narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "This has nothing to do with you. Just get out of here. Otherwise, your life as the Emperor's successor's disciple is still very valuable." Long Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said indifferently, "So, there are still people who want to buy my life?" The middle-aged man knew that he had made a slip of the tongue. He snorted coldly and didn't answer. Seeing that Long Chen didn't have the intention to answer, they all had the intention to kill him. At this moment, they were in Northern College. However, Long Chen didn't have anyone by his side. It wouldn't be difficult for the God Emperors present to take him down together. The smile on Long Chen's face grew wider. His fingertips tapped rhythmically on the antique table as he said, "I heard that the people of Blue Blood City are incomparably greedy, supercilious, and arrogant. Now, it seems that I should add one more thing to the list: extreme stupidity. Did you really think that I opened the door just to chat with you?" Long Chen's voice fell. The middle-aged man and the dozen or so other people's faces suddenly changed, as if they were facing a great enemy. Everyone looked around, but Long Chen was still the only one in front of them. "Kill him for me. Do it quickly." The middle-aged man's voice was extremely cold. As soon as he finished speaking, 4 God Emperors behind him soared into the sky and charged towards Long Chen with unfathomable power. The entire hall suddenly began to crumble, turning into powder under the tide of divine power. Long Chen still sat where he was without moving a single step. His right hand suddenly grasped at the air, and a silk thread appeared in his hand. Heavenly net. Rumble. As soon as Long Chen's voice fell, the countless silk threads in his hand rippled outwards, and the entire hall was instantly filled with laws. This is the Northern Courtyard's Heavenly Palace formation? How can you control this formation so easily? The middle-aged man stared at the scene in front of him in shock, as if he was extremely familiar with this formation, but he was inexplicably terrified. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and led the remaining people away, madly attacking the formation's Tao patterns in all directions. Long Chen's eyes revealed a hint of disdain. His right hand moved as if he was plucking the silk threads, as if he was gently stroking the strings of a zither. Bang, bang, bang. The 4 God Emperors charging towards him were instantly sliced into powder by the countless silk threads, and their souls were trapped within. Long Chen looked at the middle-aged man who was still trying to escape and said, "Since you know this formation, why are you still running?" As soon as Long Chen's voice fell, The god emperors and god kings outside the hall had heard the commotion and rushed over. When they saw this, they immediately snorted coldly, and the divine light in their hands shot towards Blue Water City's group. Bang, bang, bang. Under the joint attack from the inside and outside. The physical bodies of everyone present were crushed in this formation, leaving behind only traces of their divine souls. Longchen waved his right hand and casually removed the formation's power, and everyone else also captured everyone's souls. Spread the news. From now on, the northern courtyard's doors will be open, and anyone who wants to visit can come. We will treat them as our honored guests. Longchen said to Qiushan. Qiushan looked at the people of Blue Water City who were left with only their souls, and the corners of his eyes could not help but twitch. He bowed and retreated. The souls of Blue Water City's group of more than 10 people were sullen at this moment. They only felt depressed and unbearable. Longchen was using them as an example to others. This bastard had opened the door to invite them into the trap, and they had actually walked in like idiots. Outside the northern courtyard, Qiushan directly sent out nearly 100 venerable sovereigns to post notices all around the northern courtyard, and Longchen's words were written clearly on them. The other two groups of people guarding outside the northern courtyard actually laughed when they saw the notice. Third Master is indeed capable. He has only been in for a short while, and he has already tamed everyone here. He even posted notices. Looks like the northern courtyard will soon return to our clan. Let's go in and take a look. Third Master might have already prepared for the handover. Go back and report to the city lord that the matter is basically done. Find an opportunity to kill that so-called Realm Master's successor. What Realm Master's successor? It's all bullshit. Kill him and hand him over. It has nothing to do with us. Chapter 1088. There were 3 groups of people from Jade Water City loitering outside the northern courtyard. The second group entered from the south gate, and the news quickly reached Longchen's ears. Longchen and the others had strange expressions on their faces. He had originally opened the gate to let the people of Jade Water City in as a warning, informing them that the northern courtyard was not a place they could enter as they pleased. Even someone with a brain would be able to understand the meaning of those notices after just a little thought. Yet, the second group of people from Jade Water City had still entered from the south gate like idiots. Zhuge Ziyan couldn't help but laugh. Master, wait here. I'll go and welcome them. Ha! A smile appeared on Longchen's face. He waved his hand and said, just be careful. Try your best to bring them here. Zhuge Ziyan and the other god emperors left the Sky Hall. A moment later, they saw the group of people from Jade Water City walking on the main road with their heads held high. Many people from the paradise who didn't know the situation even thought that they were guests from the Heaven's Fate Palace, and they all bowed respectfully. This scene made everyone stifle their laughter. Before Zhuge Ziyan and the others could say anything, the leader of the group, a woman in her 30s, pointed at them and said, "Are you here to welcome us? Disperse the people around you. They're an eyesore. Who dares to fight over the northern courtyard with us from Jade Water City? At least you know what's good for you this time." As soon as she finished speaking, the people from Jade Water City behind her all raised their heads and laughed arrogantly. Pfft, Yao Yiji couldn't help but laugh. Zhuge Ziyan hurriedly gave her a look, then coughed lightly and said to the people of Jade Water City, "Everyone is right. My master and the others are still waiting for you in the Sky Hall. The northern courtyard is so vast and rich. We are indeed ashamed to accept it. We are willing to apologize." Zhuge Ziyan's words made the people of Jade Water City even more arrogant, as if they were very pleased with his words. The people of Jade Water City casually glanced at Zhuge Ziyan, then walked into the Sky Hall with their heads held high. Zhuge Ziyan and the others followed closely behind, ready to completely cut off their escape route. It was rare to catch a turtle in a jar twice in a row. After a long while, Longchen heard a loud bang, and the door to the hall in front of him was directly smashed to pieces. One by one, the people from Jade Water City walked in. The woman glanced around, and her brows furrowed slightly at the sight of the crumbled palace, but she didn't seem to take it to heart. She stared at Long Chen and shouted, "Hurry up and get down here. Take your people and get out of the North Court. Otherwise, you will all die here." This fellow clearly regarded the palace that had been damaged due to the battle as a show of strength from his own clansmen. Ha! Just as this person finished speaking, the few god emperors behind Zhuge Ziyun couldn't help but laugh out loud. Qiu Shan even laughed exaggeratedly as he hugged his stomach. "What are you laughing at? Are you tired of living?" The faces of the people from Jadewater City turned gloomy as killing intent surged from their bodies. Buzz. Long Chen didn't immediately act. Instead, he waved his hand and took out the souls of the people from Jadewater City. Long Chen smiled faintly as he looked at the second group of people in front of him and said, "Everyone, do you think we should get out of the North Court? Do you understand the meaning of the notice?" The scene in front of them caused the people of Jadewater City to be completely stunned. They had never imagined that this would happen. The woman in the lead pointed at Long Chen, her body trembling slightly as she said, You dared to kill my people. You know our relationship with the Heaven's Fate Palace." Before she could finish speaking, Long Chen had already run out of patience. Strands of silk appeared out of thin air once more, covering the entire palace. This time, Long Chen didn't give them much time to speak. He directly killed them all and captured their souls. Long Chen looked at the souls of Jadewater City and said to Zhuge Ziyun with a smile, "Continue to put up the notice. At the same time, call the third group of people in to drink. Say that we want to apologize to them." "Apologize to them?" Zhuge Ziyun was stunned. Soon after, he seemed to be interested. He hurriedly led everyone to prepare. They wanted to see if the people of Jadewater City would fall for it again. Would such an idiotic excuse still work? After everyone left, Long Chen looked at the souls he captured. He seemed to be more and more certain of the Heaven's Fate Palace's intentions. When the sun set, the third group of people from Jadewater City was also captured by Long Chen. This scene caused Zhuge Ziyun and the others to laugh from ear to ear. They couldn't even straighten their backs. They didn't even dare to believe that there were divine kings or even divine emperors among the people of Jadewater City. These people were actually able to see through such an idiotic lie even though they had such a high cultivation level. It really refreshed their understanding. Evening. Jianshi San returned to the northern courtyard. He told Long Chen about the background of Jadewater City, as well as the locations and backgrounds of the other two places where they would stay. Long Chen heard this and was even more certain of his thoughts. If we had chosen these two places back then, I'm afraid we wouldn't have had the slightest chance of getting the support of the Heaven's Fate Palace. Long Chen said to Jianshi San. Jianshi San nodded and replied, "That's true. Although the other two places are very prosperous, in reality, they have to pay a large amount of resources to the Heaven's Fate Palace. These resources can't be supplied for a long time. Although we can obtain an unimaginable amount of resources there, we have to leave in at most 10 years. Zhuge Ziyun suddenly understood. He continued, "But the northern courtyard is different. The northern courtyard was originally the base of Jadewater City. Jadewater City found the three goddesses. This courtyard doesn't have any rules about paying resources to the Heaven's Fate Palace." Long Chen understood. What the two of them said made sense. The Heaven's Fate Palace arranged this place for us. Perhaps it wants us to get rid of Jadewater City. Long Chen muttered to himself. Everyone pondered for a moment and nodded. The words and actions of the people of Jadewater City were truly unflattering. If such people stayed in the Heaven's Fate Palace, they would be arrogant because of their achievements. It would be a headache. Of course. All of this was still Long Chen's guess. The people of the Heaven's Fate Palace didn't seem to have any intention of saying it out loud. Instead, it seemed as if everything was changing. Perhaps Long Chen entering the northern courtyard was one of the reasons. Long Chen said in a low voice, "The three groups we've captured now have 9 divine emperors. How many divine emperors are left in Jadewater City? Chapter 1089. Outside the northern courtyard. Sukai and the god kings of the great void-blessed land had ashen faces. Sukai stared at the three god kings who had been called over angrily. He bellowed out, "Are these the people you wanted me to find? The people of Jadewater City are a bunch of idiots. I even sent people to warn them, but they still walked in one after another. It's been 2 days, and not a single one has come out. I'm afraid all three groups are doomed." Sukai was furious to the extreme. The three god kings were sweating profusely and bitterly laughing in their hearts. They didn't think that Jadewater City would be so stupid. This matter is due to our negligence. Jadewater City has the reason and strength to act against Longchen. After this loss, they won't be so naive. Sukai snorted coldly, but he didn't really blame the two. After all, he didn't have any substantial transactions with the people of Jadewater City. Even if they couldn't take down Longchen, Sukai wouldn't lose much. After a moment of silence, Sukai frowned and said, "This Longchen has less than 10 god kings by his side, but he was able to kill 3 groups of people from Jadewater City in such a short time. He has some skill." The 3 god kings looked at each other and shook their heads, replying, "The 3 of us have heard some rumors. That Longchen might have used part of the Heavenly Palace formation." The Heavenly Palace formation. Sukai was shocked. This person has only been in the northern courtyard for a few days, but he's already able to use the Heavenly Palace formation to kill 3 groups of people with god kings. It seems like this matter won't be resolved so easily. Apart from those idiots from Jadewater City, who else can make a move? If this drags on, I'm afraid the people from the other blessed lands will come. The 3 god kings shook their heads, replying, "Unless the Heaven's Fate Palace announces that the ban is lifted, only Jadewater City can make a move. After all, they have the Heavenly Palace token." In reality, there were more than 10 factions in the Heaven's Fate Palace that had the Heavenly Palace token. However, these factions weren't in the Northern District, so they wouldn't care about the Great Void-blessed land's involvement. Sukai was speechless. He flicked his sleeves and left, once again heading towards where the people of Jadewater City were. On the other side. In just 2 days, the news that Longchen was going to hold a large banquet in the North Courtyard had spread. This banquet didn't even specify who was invited. In other words, anyone who wanted to participate only needed to enter the Northern Courtyard. Of course, at this moment, no one was willing to enter the Northern Courtyard. They were all watching. The 3 groups of people from Jadewater City had never returned. Everyone still remembered clearly what had happened, and they did not want to repeat the same mistakes. In the past 2 days, Jadewater City had almost become the laughing stock of many people. He had invited the monarch into the urn 3 times, and he had caught the turtle in the urn 3 times. Days passed. The gates of the northern courtyard were still wide open. Seeing that the day of the banquet was about to arrive, everyone started discussing. The streets and alleys of the northern district were all discussing what this realm lord's successor was planning to do by occupying the northern district. Don't tell me that this fellow wants to invite everyone into the northern courtyard and kill them all at once with the Heavenly Palace formation? You think too highly of him. It's still a question how much of the Heavenly Palace array he can use. It's impossible for him to use it on a large scale. Are you scared? If you're scared, then don't go in. As long as they don't enter the northern courtyard, they'll be violating the Heavenly Palace's rules. Stop arguing. I want to know whether or not the people from Jadewater City will come, ha ha ha. Pfft, ha. When someone mentioned whether or not the people from Jadewater City would come to the banquet, it immediately caused a roar of laughter. While everyone was making noise, Jadewater City's large group was actually on the main road, heading straight for the northern courtyard's gates. Many people heard the noise and turned around to see this scene. They immediately shut their mouths and ran far away. While the God Kings were still laughing heartily, their bodies were directly cleaved apart by the surging divine power. Whoever dares to talk about my Jadewater City's matters will die. The leader of the Jadewater City group was a large man with a dark face. His words were filled with killing intent. Everyone immediately fell silent. In the northern district of the Heavenswell Palace, probably only Jadewater City had the Heavenly Palace token and dared to act so unbridled. The large group took up almost half of the main road. The remaining 20 or so God Emperors and nearly 3,000 God Kings of Jadewater City were all present. After the Divine Kings, there were countless venerable sovereigns. The meaning of such a lineup was self-evident. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, all the people of Jadewater City entered the northern courtyard in a single file. Are they here to eat or to fight? Are you still going? Of course, why wouldn't we go? It would be a waste if we didn't watch such a show. Just stay far away from Jadewater City. Stay far away from Jadewater City? I think you should stay far away from Long Chen's group. It's said that Long Chen has less than 10 God Emperors by his side. Provoking Jadewater City like this is unwise. I'm afraid he can only use a portion or two of the Heavenly Palace array at most. It's impossible for him to suppress Jadewater City's aggressive lineup. Jadewater City's high-profile actions made many people realize that they were going to meet force with force. They all stayed far away, choosing not to enter the northern courtyard to participate in this matter. After all, Long Chen could use a portion of the Heavenly Palace array. This portion of the array might not be able to suppress the people of Jadewater City, but if it accidentally injured them, the gains would not make up for the losses. Of course, there was still a small group of people who were brave enough to follow closely behind Jadewater City. Everyone entered the northern courtyard and followed behind Jadewater City, walking on the deserted main road. The people of Jadewater City understood the northern courtyard, so they did not need others to lead the way. On the other side, in the strange palace at the very center of Heaven's Fate Palace, two white-eyed, golden-haired old men stood in front of a pool of water, looking at the three holy maidens. Palace Masters, do you think our speculations were wrong? We deduced 3 paths for them, but they chose the northern courtyard. I'm afraid they'll pass the first trial. Interesting, interesting. Palace Masters, you seem to have other matters to attend to today? The voices of the 3 holy maidens rose and fell, seeming to be very excited. The 2 Palace Masters nodded and replied, the treasured river outside the ancient battlefield of good fortune has already begun to form. Our Heaven's Fate Palace will also participate in the struggle for this blessed land. As for that Long Chen's matter, we don't need to consider it now. One of the holy maidens giggled. She stared at the 2 Palace Masters and said, why doesn't this matter have anything to do with Long Chen? Didn't he come to Heaven's Fate Palace to get us to support him in establishing a blessed land? Then let him go to the ancient battlefield of good fortune for us. One of the 2 Palace Masters said, it's impossible to deduce Long Chen's future path. We can only vaguely see his shadow based on what has already happened. Chapter 1090. The Heavenswell Palace Master and the 3 fairies seemed to have different opinions. The 2 Palace Masters didn't seem to want to offend the forces of the Blessed Lands because of Long Chen. In fact, although Long Chen's arrival in the Northern Court was tacitly approved by them, Long Chen's speed was a bit too fast. The 3 fairies didn't seem to be worried, replying, don't worry, we've already sent people over. If he loses, this matter will be dropped. If he wins, then the matter of the Fortune Ancient Battlefield will be handed over to him. If he can enter the Fortune Ancient Battlefield, how about the 2 Palace Masters give him a chance? On the other side, Long Chen was in the Northern Court. The people of Jadewater City had come, eyeing him covetously. In the Northern Court's large square, Long Chen and Zhuge Zian stood side by side, with many banquets placed in front of them. The fragrance of wine filled the air. Everyone looked at each other, and no one dared to step forward. Many people who came to join in the fun also distanced themselves from the people of Jadewater City. Everyone could smell the flames of war. The Jadewater City's city master had a mean face and looked like a middle-aged man. Divine power surged from his body, like a river bursting through a dam. His entire face was gloomy, and he said coldly, "For invitations, if my Jade Water City doesn't come today, wouldn't we become a joke in the Heavenswell Palace?" Longchen couldn't help but smile when he heard this, saying, "Today, I invited you to discuss something with you." As he spoke, Longchen grabbed with his right hand, and several souls appeared in his hand. These souls were the 3 groups of people from Jade Water City who had been guarding the northern court. Although Longchen had destroyed their bodies, he hadn't destroyed their souls. Seeing these souls appear, the Jade Water City's city master's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. In more than 10 days, Jade Water City had become the laughingstock of the entire northern district, because these 3 groups had been captured on the same day. His tone was very unfriendly, and he stared at Longchen, asking, "What is it?" Longchen's eyes flashed, and his voice was firm, "Leave the Heavenswell Palace, and I'll return these people's souls." "Leave Destiny Palace?" Longchen's words caused the master of Jade Water City to be startled, but he immediately burst into laughter. After finding the 3 goddesses in Blue Water City, they moved into the Heavenswell Palace's northern courtyard. For more than 100 years, who in the Heavenswell Palace wouldn't yield to him? Today, not only did Longchen and the others occupy the Northern College, they even wanted them to leave the Heaven's Fate Palace. The Heaven's Fate Palace took back the Northern College because of you. If you take these people and scram out of the Northern College and apologize, I'll let it go. Let's see if you can walk out of this northern courtyard alive. After saying that, the city lord of Jade Water City seemed to have lost his patience. The moment he finished speaking, the god emperors behind him roared and burst forth with boundless divine energy. Many god kings were also ready to attack, and countless emperor realm masters were shouting. Within the northern courtyard, a great battle was about to break out. Zhuge Ziyun and the others coldly snorted, each of them exuding a vast aura as they prepared for this battle. Longchen suddenly waved his hand slightly and said indifferently, "Today is the 4th time I've invited Jade Water City as a guest. Since you're not willing, I can only take action, Wang." Longchen's voice fell. His hands moved in the air, constantly waving. Array principles began to condense in the air at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if a net was covering the sky, emitting terrifying fluctuations. As soon as this scene appeared, everyone cried out in alarm. Heavenly Palace Array, this person really has mastered the Heavenly Palace Array of the Northern College. Does he want to use the Heavenly Palace Array to fight against the entire Jade Water City? With his understanding of the Heavenly Palace Array, I'm afraid he can't do this. Jade Water City came here so confidently because they're afraid of the Heavenly Palace Array. It's only been a little more than 10 days, and this person can already use the Heavenly Palace Array. If this drags on for a few more days, I'm afraid the Heaven's Fate Palace will be the only one left in the northern courtyard. Everyone's evaluation of the Heavenly Palace Array was quite high. When the people of Jade Water City saw the Heavenly Palace Array open, they all revealed solemn expressions. The city lord of Jade Water City roared, "You want to use the Heavenly Palace Array to suppress us? You're still too inexperienced." Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, the city lord of Jade Water City clapped his hands in the air, and 2 giant drums appeared 100 meters above his head. The drums rumbled, and countless ripples of divine light spread out, trying to stop the Heavenly Palace Array's inescapable net. The inescapable net's momentum was immediately stopped. In the Northern College, there were nearly 100 people hidden in the shadows. These people all wore the unique robes of the Heaven's Fate Palace, and they all had the bearing of a god emperor. When they saw the scene, they couldn't help but shake their heads. The person in the lead said, "This Longchen is too impatient. It's already not easy for him to be able to control a portion of the Heavenly Palace Array in just 10 days. If we wait another 1 or 2 months, he'll be able to use the Heavenly Palace Array to suppress the people of Jade Water City." Just as this person finished speaking, he suddenly felt a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering sensation. The 100 people wearing the robes of the Heaven's Fate Palace immediately walked out of the shadows and looked up. Hiss! Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The entire northern college was densely packed with array runes, and a giant net covered the entire northern college. This guy can actually completely control the Heavenly Palace array. The people of Jadewater City only managed to control 60 to 70% of the Heavenly Palace array after 100 years in the Northern College, but this guy has only been in here for 10 days, and he's already completely mastered it. This is truly unbelievable. What are you all standing there for? Attack! The 100 God Emperors soared into the sky and swept toward Longchen and the others. The mighty battle had actually come to an end in the blink of an eye. On the plaza, the banquet remained untouched. Longchen still stood side by side with Jianzhursan and the others. In front of them, the people of Jadewater City's aggressive momentum had disappeared without a trace, and it was replaced by fear. They had once held the authority of the Northern College for 100 years, and even knew how terrifying the Heavenly Palace array was. Today, they had indeed come because they were afraid of Longchen's speed of understanding the Heavenly Palace array. However, the scene before them still completely stunned them. They had never imagined that Longchen would be able to completely control the Heavenly Palace array. If they had known this earlier, even if the Jadewater City Lord was an idiot, he wouldn't have led his entire clan to the Northern College. The Heavenly Palace array was originally left behind by the Heaven's Fate Palace when the Northern College was first built, and its power was enough to easily kill the 20 God Emperors. Before the Jadewater City Lord could open his mouth, he saw the heavenly net fall from the sky, crushing the bodies of the God Emperors of Jadewater City. The 2 giant drums above his head also lost their divine light and fell to the ground. At this moment, the God Emperors and thousands of God Kings of Jadewater City were all trembling. Chapter 1091. The people of Blue Water City fell limp to the ground. The more they learned about the Heavenly Palace formation, the more terrified they became. The City Lord of Blue Water City knelt on the ground as he watched the bodies of the God Emperors being destroyed. He had brought the entire Blue Water City here today to take back the northern courtyard, not to let them all die here. Bang, bang, bang. Longchen didn't answer. He continued to control the array formation Dao patterns to attack. Under the heavenly net, the bodies of the God Emperors of Blue Water City were all destroyed. The God Kings and Sovereigns were all prostrated on the ground, not daring to move. Under the Heavenly Palace formation, they could only pray that Longchen would let them live. Wang. With the bodies of the God Emperors destroyed, Longchen's actions came to an abrupt halt. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Longchen seemed to be waiting for something. Xiao, xiao, xiao. One after another, the God Emperors descended from the sky, as if they were in a hurry. There were at least 100 of them. When Longchen saw this scene, he couldn't help but reveal a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. These 100 people were the people of Heaven's Fate Palace who had been hiding in the northern courtyard. In fact, Longchen had long known that they were here. Their presence made Longchen even more certain of his thoughts. Heaven's Fate Palace had given the northern courtyard to him in order to expel Blue Water City. Heaven's Fate Palace was indebted to Jadewater City, and that debt was no small matter. Otherwise, Heaven's Fate Palace wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. When the people of Blue Water City saw the 100 God Emperors in the robes of Heaven's Fate Palace flying over, their souls were filled with joy and they hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, save me, save my Blue Water City." As the City Lord of Blue Water City spoke, a token appeared in his hand. This token had 3 colors, silver-white in color, and had distinct edges and corners. A Heavenly Palace token. Just as he finished speaking, Longchen's figure disappeared from where he stood. He reappeared, his hands forming claws and capturing the souls of the God Emperors. "Sir, please show mercy." The leader of the 100 God Emperors from Heaven's Fate Palace hurriedly cried out. The people watching from afar couldn't help but sigh when they saw this scene. In fact, Jadewater City's strength was nothing in Heaven's Fate Palace, but it had been unbridled for the past 100 years. The reason was the protection of the Heavenswell Palace and the Heavenly Palace medallion in his hand. Now that 100 God Emperors from Heaven's Fate Palace had arrived, Jade Water City would definitely be safe. Longchen captured the souls of the God Emperors and kept the token of the Jade Water City's city lord. The master of Blue Water City turned pale with fright. He had not expected Longchen to capture his divine soul in front of 100 Emperor gods from Heaven's Fate Palace. Not only that, he could also feel how terrifying Longchen was. The numerous souls of God Emperors didn't even have the slightest chance of escaping from his hands. Longchen stared at the 100 God Emperors in the sky and said, "Why have you all come to my northern courtyard? Someone from Blue Water City has disregarded the Heavenly Palace's order and barged into the northern district. There shouldn't be any problem for me to retaliate, right?" Bang! Longchen said. The soul of one of the God Emperors in Jade Water City instantly crumbled and turned into dust. Everyone in the surroundings sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the 100 God Emperors from Heaven's Fate Palace narrowed their eyes. They hadn't expected Longchen to have such a method and act so decisively. This scene completely frightened the master of Blue Water City. He roared, "Everyone, save me! For the sake of the 3 heavenly daughters, save my clan!" A hint of disdain flashed in the eyes of the leading white-faced old man. He completely ignored the master of Blue Water City's words. He only looked deeply at Longchen and replied, "What you said today is reasonable, but we still hope that you will let Jade Water City live." Longchen stared at the leader and smiled. "I don't have any great enmity with Jade Water City, so it's not like I can't let them go. However, I have 2 requests. Why don't you all listen?" The white-faced old man nodded in motion for Longchen to continue. "First, the people of Jade Water City must leave Heaven's Fate Palace's territory. Second, the spiritual fields and other things in the northern courtyard that were taken away by them, please help me restore them to their original state." Hearing this, the white-faced old man's lips curled into a smile. He knew that Longchen's arrival in the northern courtyard would definitely cause irreconcilable conflict with the people of Jade Water City. This was a good show that the upper echelons of Heaven's Fate Palace were happy to see. Jade Water City had been too unbridled in the past 10 years. When Longchen entered the northern courtyard, he had received orders not to participate in the matter between Longchen and Jade Water City. If necessary, he would protect Jade Water City. Of course, if Longchen was defeated, he would protect Longchen from Jade Water City. The white-faced old man hadn't thought that this day would come so quickly. Their eyes met. Longchen and the white-faced old man could see each other's intentions. The white-faced old man nodded in agreement. "Heaven's Fate Palace can do what you say." As for Jade Water City, the man paused and looked at the city lord of Jade Water City. The Jade Water City lord hurriedly shouted, "We're willing to leave as long as he's willing to let us all go." At this moment, the Heavenswell Palace had become their last hope. After all, their lives were in Longchen's hands. If they refused, these God Emperors would most likely die one by one. Without the God Emperors in Jade Water City, once the ban was lifted, they probably wouldn't even be able to leave Heaven's Fate Palace. "Please let them go," the white-faced old man said to Longchen. Longchen smiled and waved his hand, throwing out the God Emperor's souls. It was time for this 2-man show to come to an end. He looked at the people of Jade Water City and said coldly, "Get out. It seems that you won't be able to enjoy this banquet." The Jade Water City Lord flew away with the God Emperor's souls. Thousands of God Kings and countless sovereigns followed closely behind, battered and exhausted. Everyone shook their heads. Although Jade Water City had survived thanks to the protection of Heaven's Fate Palace, they were destined to become a laughingstock. They had been invited 4 times in a row, but all 4 times had been defeated by Longchen. It was truly laughable. Outside the northern courtyard, Sukai looked at the battered and exhausted God Emperors of Jade Water City and muttered to himself, "Jade Water City really is a bunch of idiots. It seems that it's impossible to capture the Realm Lord's successor before the other blessed lands," he knew. After today, he would have to face the forces of the various blessed lands. Over the next few days, the forces of the various blessed lands would most likely send people to Heaven's Fate Palace, and their target would naturally be Long Chen. With the various blessed lands gathered, whoever could capture the Realm Lord's successor and seize the Realm Lord's fortune would have to rely on their own ability. Northern Courtyard. Long Chen waved his hand and smiled. The banquet is still here. Although it's a bit messy, everyone can still take their seats. The people who had followed Jade Water Cheng into the Northern Courtyard did not feel that it was appropriate to leave the Northern Courtyard after hearing this. Instead, they all headed towards the banquet. Chapter 1092. The aroma of wine filled the air. After the people of Blue Water City left, more and more people entered the Northern Courtyard. These people came from all over the central continent. Although they were not from blessed lands, they were still stationed in the northern district of Heaven's Fate Palace. Long Chen still opened the gates of the Northern Courtyard, and no one was refused. The 100 Emperor Gods of Heaven's Fate Palace had not left. The white-faced old man in the lead led a few people into the hall with Long Chen. The old man stared at Long Chen and bowed as a peer, saying, "Your Excellency's methods are truly extraordinary. The matter of Blue Water City can be considered to have come to an end. Your Excellency can rest easy in the Northern Courtyard for now. Please return the Heaven Palace writ so that I can report to you." Long Chen smiled but did not answer. He only reached out to the white-faced old man and said, "Today's banquet has begun. Why don't you all sit down and drink?" Long Chen sat down. The Emperor Gods did not have any intention of sitting down. The pale-faced elder furrowed his brows and stared at Long Chen with burning eyes. Long Chen smiled, put down the cup in his hand, and said in a low voice, "I want to see the Palace Master of Heaven's Fate Palace." The reason Blue Water City could go so smoothly in Heaven's Fate Palace was because of the Heaven Palace writ. 100 years passed in a flash. Even though Heaven's Fate Palace was no longer willing to take care of Blue Water City, no one dared to attack it. That was why there were 3 places to settle down. Heaven's Fate Palace probably never expected Long Chen to take down Blue Water City so quickly. In fact, from Long Chen's point of view, the real reason Blue Water City was defeated so quickly was not because of the Heaven Palace array of the Northern Courtyard, but because it had walked to the edge of the cliff. Arrogant, conceited, and stupid. Of course, defeating Blue Water City was not Long Chen's real goal. He still wanted to see the Palace Master of Heaven's Fate Palace, and the Heavenly Lady everyone spoke of. The white-faced old man pondered for a moment, frowning. He knew that since Long Chen had said so, he would not easily hand over the Heaven Palace writ. The old man shook his head and replied, "Since Your Excellency insists, we will go back and report. We will visit again in the future." After saying that, the old man led the Emperor Gods and left the North Courtyard. After everyone left, Jianshi San, Zhuge Ziyun, and the others entered the palace. Jianshi San was the first to speak. "It's best that you don't return the Heaven Palace token to the Heaven's Fate Palace so easily. This item was forged by the first Palace Master of the Heaven's Fate Palace. Although it's only a token, it has considerable influence. There are at most 100 of them outside Tianming City. Aside from Jade Water City, the other powers with the medallion aren't weak." Long Chen nodded and looked at Zhuge Ziyun. He asked, "What's the situation with the blessed land of the Great Void? I'm afraid that the Jade Water City has interacted with them before." Zhuge Ziyun nodded and replied, "Now that the Heavenly Fate Palace has a ban, without a Heavenly Palace order, even the Great Void Blessed Land would not dare to act rashly. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to establish a relationship with Jade Water City." Long Chen pondered for a moment, and his heart sank. Although the matter with Jade Water City had been resolved, he knew that it wouldn't be peaceful in the near future. Ever since he came to the Blessed Land from the Grotto Heavens, he was destined to stir up a storm in the Central Plains. No matter where he went, the name of the Imperial Lord's successor would be coveted by the various powers of the Blessed Land. Not only did they want to obtain the method to fuse with the Imperial Lord's body, but they also wanted to fight for the world's origin. Let's wait for a few days. Longchen had a headache. Right now, he just wanted to see the palace master of the Heaven's Fate Palace as soon as possible. Pay close attention to the strength of the blessed land that appears in the Heaven's Fate Palace. With the Heavenly Palace formation in the northern court, he wasn't worried about anything happening in the short term. 10 days later, the entire Jadewater city had left the Heaven's Fate Palace. The upper echelons of the city, from the god emperors to the sovereigns, all had ashen faces. Where were they going? Jadewater City? Jadewater City had probably ceased to exist 100 years ago, hadn't it? They had found 3 goddesses for the Heaven's Fate Palace, and had been blessed to enter the northern court for 100 years. Now that they had left, they had no idea where to go. 100 kilometers away. However, they were stopped by 3 god emperors wearing the robes of the Heaven's Fate Palace. Seeing the sorry state of the people of Jadewater City, the 3 god emperors couldn't help but shake their heads and say, "Take this and go to the original location of Jadewater City. The 3 goddesses have already built a new city for you." The eyes of the Jadewater City Lord, who was the leader, flashed. He hurriedly stepped forward and asked the 3 god emperors excitedly, Good, we'll go now. Will this city still be named Jadewater? Jadewater City? The 3 god emperors shook their heads. From now on, this city will be called Heartless. After saying this, the 3 god emperors threw down 3 jade tokens and turned to return to the Heaven's Fate Palace. The Jadewater City Lord stood in place, stunned. His eyes fell on the 3 transparent jade tokens on the ground, unable to move away for a long time. He bent down, knelt in the mud, and picked up the 3 jade tokens, muttering, "Heartless, I'll cut off all ties between us." I was too heartless. After saying this, he turned and led everyone back to the original Jadewater City. Many of the upper echelons of Jadewater City fell silent. They knew what these 3 jade tokens represented. These were the jade tokens of the 3 goddesses. They were the 3 daughters of the Jadewater City Lord. 100 years ago, when they were still in swaddling clothes, they were sent to the Heaven's Fate Palace. Jadewater City had been able to stay in the Heaven's Fate Palace for a long time and enjoy endless resources. In just 100 years, the number of god kings had reached thousands, and the number of god emperors had reached 20 or 30. That was all there was to it. The people of Jadewater City knew. After today, although they still belonged to the Heaven's Fate Palace, they no longer had anything to do with it. As the people of Jadewater City left, they encountered many groups on the way to the Heaven's Fate Palace. These were the forces of the various blessed lands within the Heaven's Fate Palace. After more than 10 days, Longchen walked out of the northern courtyard for the first time. Over the past few days, he hadn't received any news from the Heaven's Fate Palace Lord, but he had heard that the various blessed lands were gradually setting foot in Heaven's Fate City. In just 10 days, including the Great Void Blessed Land, a total of 4 blessed lands had appeared. If this continued, it would take at most a month for the 16 blessed lands to gather at the Heaven's Fate Palace. Outside the northern courtyard, it was much quieter. Ever since the various blessed lands forces had appeared one after another, the various forces in the northern district had all distanced themselves from the northern courtyard, afraid of being involved in this dispute. Even so, less than 100 breaths after Longchen left the northern courtyard, many figures shuttled through the streets and alleys, and many communication formations disappeared in the void. Although the Heaven's Fate Palace had a ban, it wasn't as peaceful as water. Chapter 1093. Longchen walked out of the northern courtyard and headed straight for the strange palace at the center of Heaven's Fate Palace. He couldn't wait any longer. It took him several days to reach the center of Heaven's Fate Divine City from the northern district. Longchen had the Heaven Palace token in his hand, so his journey was unimpeded. The strange silver-white palace looked like it was made of butterflies flying around. As soon as Longchen arrived, two god emperors in dark red robes approached him. The two of them were about to speak. Longchen spoke first. "You don't have to report. Can you help me block the people behind me?" The two god emperors were stunned. Then, they saw Longchen walk up the palace stairs with his head held high. One of them was about to stop him, but the other stopped him and said, "The three goddesses are waiting for him. He's a smart man. There's no need to do anything unnecessary." After saying that, the two of them turned around and walked into the streets on both sides. As Longchen walked on the silver-white stairs, he could not help but reveal a smile at the corners of his mouth. The people of Heaven's Fate Palace really liked the Tao of divination. They knew Longchen had to come, so they had been waiting. It was as if doing so would make their divination come true and appear more mysterious. This made Longchen feel a little funny. Inside the palace, the sound of water was endless, and the sound of women playing lingered. Longchen stopped in front of the palace door. Longchen requests an audience with the three goddesses. Longchen was the first to speak. In fact, he thought that this should be where the palace master of Heaven's Fate Palace was, but the words of the two god emperors were clearly heard by the emperor master's remnant soul. He just found out. This was actually the place where the three fairies from Jadewater City were located. "What are you doing here?" A woman's voice mixed with the sound of water and reached Longchen's ears. Longchen's smile deepened. He said directly, "Since the three of you are goddesses, why don't you make a divination and tell me what to do next?" There was a hint of mockery in his words. The three fairies knew why he had come to the Heavenswell Palace, but they still wanted to beat around the bush. It was a bit superfluous. His voice fell. Inside the palace, the noise of three women talking could be heard. A moment later, a woman's voice rang out clearly, "We have been divining this entire time. We can't see the path you want to take, but we know what you want to do now." Upon hearing this, Longchen frowned slightly. Finally, he could not help but use the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to explore the palace. The three women were in the pool. Their pale skin and hairless appearance made Longchen jump in shock. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul, who had been silent, suddenly transmitted a message into Longchen's sea of consciousness. These three so-called heavenly ladies are the products of incomplete Tao laws. They can't see anything at all. They are constantly deducing what is happening around them. They are constantly observing the changes in the East-West imperishable Tao laws. At this moment, Longchen was a little shocked. The so-called three heavenly ladies of the Heavenswell Palace were actually three women with incomplete bodies. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul's words even had a hint of disdain. Longchen understood this very well. After all, the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul did not care about the so-called Heavenswell cultivators. To him, they were simply side branches to the extreme. Heavenswell? Who could understand the imperishable Tao laws and the endless changes of Heavenswell better than the master of a realm? He did not even bother to deduce, nor did he bother to pass the technique of deducing Heavenswell and prying into the imperishable Tao laws to Longchen. You came from the Grotto Heaven forces and weaved a large net with the great void blessed land as the center. The Heavenswell Palace may be a turning point for you. If you want to become a blessed land force and fight against the other blessed lands, you must obtain the support of the Heavenswell Palace. In fact, you still have many paths to take. This is just one of your choices. Buzz. As soon as the three finished speaking, the Silver Palace's formation runes flickered. Rays of starlight shot out from every corner of the palace, intersecting to form a huge spider web. The spider web intersected layer by layer. Longchen stood in the center, and the great void blessed land was one of the intersecting joints. Longchen stared blankly at the scene before him. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul did not care about deducing Heaven's will, but Longchen found it very strange. This spider web seemed to be the many paths of his life, each one of which was deduced from his past. This can't even be considered a deduction. It can only be considered a guess. They can't calculate your life. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul could not help but speak again. Longchen did not intend to continue arguing. He stepped directly into the palace. Buzz. As soon as he stepped into the palace, a terrifying pressure came from all directions. This terrifying power caused Longchen's pupils to shrink. This aura had surpassed the Divine Emperor realm. Let him in. The Heavenly Lady's voice rang out, and the powerful aura disappeared without a trace. Longchen walked to the pool and looked at the three white-eyed ladies. He could not help but sigh. The three ladies were terrifyingly white. Their clear faces had no hair or beard. Their eyes were as white as paper, and there was only brilliance flowing in them. Longchen did not know why, but he felt a sense of sadness. The three ladies did not seem to know Longchen's current feelings. They still had smiles on their faces. The pool was still playing as usual, as if Longchen did not exist. However, one of them said, "Do you still choose to rely on the Heaven's Will Palace to restrict the forces of the Blessed Lands, and then establish a force of the Blessed Lands to fight against them?" Longchen nodded. However, he soon felt that it was inappropriate and said, "That is indeed the case." After that, Longchen placed the Heaven Palace token in his hand at the edge of the pool. Originally, he wanted to use this item to meet the Heaven's Palace Master. However, it seemed that the three heavenly ladies' positions in the Heaven's Will Palace were not inferior to the Palace Master. At the very least, they should be able to decide whether to support him. The Fortune Ancient Battlefield. If you can obtain the Fortune Tao Foundation from the Fortune Ancient Battlefield, the Heaven's Will Palace will agree to all your requests. The three ladies stopped playing. They did not seem to be negotiating with Longchen. Instead, they were deducing what the Heaven's Will Palace needed. The Fortune Ancient Battlefield? Longchen was stunned when he heard this name. Then, his pupils shrank. He almost did not hesitate to welcome them. "I'm willing to go to the Fortune Ancient Battlefield." Buzz. Just as Longchen agreed, another silver light shone on the silver spider web in the sky. Longchen was still in the center of the spider web. "Wait a moment. The two palace masters will be here soon." The lady spoke again. Longchen nodded and stared at the three. If he did not look carefully, he would not be able to tell who was talking. The three of them looked like they were carved from the same mold. Chapter 1094. When the three heavenly ladies heard Longchen's words, they froze in midair. The scene quieted down and the three of them did not speak for a long time. After a long while, two golden-haired, white-eyed old men walked into the palace. When the two stepped into the palace and saw the many spiderwebs with Longchen at the center, their eyes narrowed. Longchen also looked over with a serious gaze. Although the two of them had similar eyes to the three heavenly ladies, they could see clearly. They only had cultivation in the God Emperor realm, but their every movement gave Longchen an aura that made his heart tremble with fear. "Greetings to the Heaven's Will Palace Master." Longchen bowed to the two of them. Although the two of them were at the Emperor God realm like him, they were in the Heaven's Will Palace, and they were the Heaven's Will Palace Masters. Their cultivation might not be high, but Longchen had met people who cultivated the Heaven's Will before, and their battle strength was far beyond their peers. Moreover, now Longchen had a favor to ask. The two palace masters stared at Longchen and did not act arrogantly, returning the greeting. The two of them took a deep look at the spiderweb above Longchen's head and said in a deep voice, "Since you've decided to go to the Fortune Ancient Battlefield for the Heaven's Will Palace, we can agree to your request." The two of them didn't drag things out. "Get ready, I'll order someone to take you to the Fortune Ancient Battlefield in 20 days. As for the grotto heavens you've brought, as long as they're within the Heaven's Will Palace, I'll guarantee their safety," the two palace masters said. Longchen nodded and left the strange palace. After he left, the Tao-patterned spiderweb in the palace slowly disappeared. The two palace masters looked at this scene and muttered to themselves, "If he can obtain the Creation Taoist Foundation, we can support him to become the 17th force in the Blessed Land." Now that the central region is turbulent and many Tao laws are faintly disappearing, the Blessed Lands will fight for the world origin. This is a disaster for the Heavenswell Palace. More than 10 days later, Longchen stood in the north courtyard and ordered everyone not to leave. The gates of the northern courtyard were still wide open, but no one dared to enter if they didn't go out. In the past 10 days or so, Heavenswell Palace was filled with people from the 16 blessed lands. Almost all of them had their eyes on Northern College at all times. Many forces with Heavenly Palace tokens gradually moved into the Northern District. These forces had close relations with the various blessed lands. Rumble. On this day, above Destiny Palace, 3 gigantic three-eyed golden griffins tore through the air. Their destination was the Northern College. The various forces frowned as they watched the scene with widened eyes. Ever since Longchen and the others had been arranged to enter the Northern College, this was the first time Destiny Palace had taken the initiative to make contact with them. They had even used the three-eyed golden griffin. These griffins possessed the heavenly origin bloodline and were the unique mounts of the Heavens Palace. As soon as this item appeared, everyone knew that Longchen and the others were about to leave Heavenswell Palace. As soon as this happened, the various forces with the northern courtyard as the center began to spread the news like a tide. In the north courtyard, the three-eyed golden griffins whistled as they landed, causing waves of air to rise. Longchen was already standing on the plaza. The 3 god emperors of Heavenswell Palace walked down from behind the fiends. The handsome young man in the lead said, "These three-eyed golden griffins will lead you to the fortune ancient battlefield. Outside Heavenswell Palace, there are 30 god emperors at your disposal, 30 god emperors." Zhuge Yao Yeji, and the others couldn't help but suck in a cold breath behind Longchen. The fact that Heavenswell Palace had sent 30 god emperors was enough to show their trust in Longchen and how much importance they placed on the fortune ancient battlefield. In the current central continent, the likes of god emperors could affect the situation as a whole. 30 god emperors leaving Heavenswell Palace was no small matter. Everyone thought about it and couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. Ever since Longchen came from the Grotto Heavens, the various blessed lands had lost their minds. Almost all of the god emperors were silent. The opening of the fortune ancient battlefield was bound to cause an unprecedented war between the blessed lands. Longchen nodded in agreement. He rejected Jianshursan and Zhuge Ziyun's request to follow. He knew that this trip was extremely dangerous. The fewer people there were, the better. Although Jianshursan was strong, he needed to stay in the northern courtyard alone. Otherwise, he would feel uneasy. The 3 god emperors saw that Longchen didn't hesitate to step onto the back of the three-eyed golden griffins. Roar! The griffins soared into the air and flew across the sky above Heavenswell Palace. On the griffin's back, Longchen asked the 3 god emperors, "How will the Heavenswell Palace Lord deal with the northern courtyard's safety?" The 3 laughed. "Don't worry, Your Excellency. The ban will be lifted in 3 days. However, the Palace Lord is preparing to take back all the Heaven Palace tokens. The Palace Lord will also send people to help Jianshursan control the Heaven Palace formation of the northern courtyard. Take back all the Heaven Palace tokens." Longchen's heart trembled. The Heaven Palace tokens were very important to Heavenswell Palace. If they could take them back with just a few words, there would be no need for him to fight with Blue Water City. Now it seemed Heavenswell Palace was planning to make some big moves during this period. At the same time, the various forces of blessed lands moved at almost the same time. Longchen led 30 Heavenswell Palace god emperors and left in the direction of the fortune ancient battlefield. The Great Void blessed lands received the news. Sukai frowned when he heard this. He said in a low voice, "Stay in Heavenswell Palace and pay attention to the northern courtyard and Heavenswell Palace's movements." Seeing that Sukai was about to leave, one of the god emperors said, "Young master, why do you still need to go to the fortune ancient battlefield? It's enough to have Dongfangpa and young master Shuashan there." Sukai shook his head and said in a low voice, "Originally, it was enough. However, with the addition of the Realm Lord's successor, it's not enough. the various forces of blessed lands will attach as much importance to the Realm Lord's successor as to the Fortune Ancient battlefield. The Fortune Ancient battlefield. This place in the Fiend God Ancient Forbidden Lands did not belong to any forces of blessed lands. Therefore, once these two blessed lands opened, all the major blessed lands would come to compete for them. At this time, the blessed lands of the Middle Continent would close the teleportation arrays of the various blessed lands. Longchen led 30 god emperors and rode on the three-eyed golden griffin. After traveling day and night for 2 months and 3 days, they finally arrived at the Fortune Ancient battlefield. Whoosh! When Longchen saw this place, he finally understood why it was called the Ancient Battlefield. The griffin landed. 100 meters away from its huge forelimbs was a land of ashes. The entire world seemed to be divided into 2 areas. In the area of ashes, there were many ancient buildings that were too tall to reach. They were like broken walls, real and illusory at the same time. If one did not get close, one would not be able to see them. Inside, there were towering white bones, flames of war, and endless armies charging and breaking through enemy lines. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.